Absent.
11 present, 1 absent. Please note that Commissioner Fortune is absent from tonight's meeting. Next, could we move to the prayer and the pledge? Commissioner Sorge, could you lead us?
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive, fellow commissioners. Almighty God, we implore you, look upon us and guide us this night as we make decisions which so greatly affect our community of Butte-Silver. Direct our thoughts, words, and deeds so that we please you and best serve our fellow citizens. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next, we'll move on to the approval of the minutes. Commissioner Frederickson.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. At this time, I move to approve the minutes from the October 18th, 2023 regular meeting.
We have a motion and a second. Is there anything on the question? Could commissioners please vote? And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
11 yea, 0 nay.
11 yea, 0 nay. Motion passes. We don't have any items not addressed on the agenda tonight, so I'll move on to the Chief Executive's report. Today we did the Native American Heritage Month pledge and proclamation, I should say, here in the courthouse. And so we want to make sure that everyone recognizes that we're honoring the Native American population for the month of November. And there's a lot of information that's out there, and there's some banners downstairs that'll be there for the rest of the month that people can look at and get more information. I also want to thank everyone in the courthouse. Yesterday we had a real successful trick-or-treating with the kids in the courthouse. I especially want to thank Lindsay and Annie and Mackenzie as they put in a little spook house in the rotunda. Not too scary, but the kids had a really good time. There was about 2,000 kids that came through here, and I think probably about 10,000 that were up at Treat Street. So the ability to have a safe place for kids to go trick-or-treating was really supported well here in the courthouse. And of course, up at Treat Street, they always do a fantastic job. So I want to give them some kudos as well. And Commissioner Shea wanted to remind me today that the Butte High girls are going into their divisional tournament, and so we want to wish them good luck, and they're playing tomorrow night, correct, Michelle? And so we want to give the Butte High girls, wish them the best of luck. A couple other things. Some people might have saw the news about the property tax bills. Everyone's getting their property tax bills, and so we want to put out an informational message to everyone and about how they are assessed. And I again want to really credit our local government here for the work that they did to really reduce property tax burden from the local tax, from the local government. We dropped 11% from where we were last year, $3.5 million that this body and local government and our department heads worked together to make sure that we did that to lower that tax burden on property tax owners. And so I'm proud of the work that we did. I don't think many communities are going to be able to say that they did that for their community. And so I appreciate all the hard work that everyone did. And on the website, we put out a letter that everyone can take a look at. And it's out on social media, and it's been picked up by the news agencies as well. So that's out there. I know a lot of people are here because Atlantic Richfield is going to do a presentation today. I just want to touch on a few items. There's been a few comments recently saying that a concern that Butte-Silver is not in support of putting waste in the Berkeley pit. And I can tell you that is not true, has never been true, and has never came out of anybody's mouth that I worked with here in Butte-Silver. We've, over this whole time that we started talking, since I've been here in 2021, we've talked about protecting the citizens, trying to make sure that we kept as much of the trucks off the public roads as we possibly could, and finding ways to get the waste to where it needs to go while protecting the public. And with that, we talked about rail, we talked about slurry, we talked about bridges, we talked about conveyors. And I'm happy to say that I've been in conversations with the Atlantic Richfield, and they're on board with conveyors. And so we're going to need to work with EPA to be able to get the product, the waste, across our main thoroughfares by utilizing conveyors. And we're very adamant about doing that. And there's some conversations of possibly how we could possibly get some of the waste into the Berkeley pit. I know that there's some issues with that a little bit. Some of it is because of the soils that you have that have vegetation in them, so the nitrates and things like that mixing in there have some challenges with that. But I think we have an opportunity to do that. And these were conversations prior to anything that's happened in the last few weeks. We've been talking about this for a long time. And so I know a lot of people are here to voice their concerns about neighborhoods, and we're hearing them, and I understand that. But I want you to know that this is part of the public process. When we went up to Centerville, there were no decisions made about that. We'd made no commitments to Atlantic Richfield that's where a repository was going. It was for Atlantic Richfield to show a proposed potential site and then get that public input. We reached out to the Centerville neighborhood. We reached out to people to allow them to have that input. But there are no decisions being made, and as they are presenting tonight, again, there are no decisions made, and there have been none. There's been no backdoor deals. There's been no secret meetings. All the meetings that have been there have been out, and we've talked about them as we've gone forward. And so anything that's going to happen has to come through this body to approve of anything that we do. This is the body that will make the approvals to do that. So I just wanted to kind of touch base on that. I also want to touch base on that, we're working hard in our Department of Reclamation, and we brought on a consultant that, many people talk about the paratailings, and Water Environmental Technologies was an engineer on that. We have been working with Water Environmental Technologies on our project and the BIBSU project, working as a consultant for us. So Josh Vincent, was instrumental in that as the engineer, he's working for Butte-Silver. We brought him on, I'd say about 5 months ago, to help us with consulting on our position as well. So I want people to understand that we're doing a lot of things, a lot of conversations that do happen, and I know not every one of them doesn't happen out in the public forum. It's just not possible to have a public meeting every time that you talk to any different agency. I know that the EPA came and spoke to some of our commissioners, and those meetings were held just with the commissioners at that time. And that's a lot of times how many of our meetings are when we talk. There's not very many times that we ever get all the agencies together that we're making any decisions that are going forward until we actually talk to the public, till we reach out, till we have the public process that everybody is asking about. So I just wanted to touch on that. I think that there's a little bit of a misconception that there's a lot of meetings that are happening that are making decisions that are impacting what the cleanup is what's going to happen with the cleanup. There are a lot of conversations. I can tell you that there's tons of conversations. Every day we talk Superfund, every single day. So, for us to not be able to do that, it would be really, it would impede the progress that we have to have. And so I want people to understand kind of the process that we're doing here. And I know everybody in here has a passion for Butte. You wouldn't be sitting out here in this audience, and everybody sitting up here has that same passion, and we work extremely hard for that every single day. So I'm going to close the Chief Executive's report. I know we're going to have a long night here. We have a full house. So we're going to move on to public comment. And so tonight we're going to make sure that we be respectful. We're going to give you 3 minutes to talk. I think that we're probably going to have a lot of people that are going to want to come up, have some public comment. I want to remind people, when you have public comment, we cannot respond to questions up here. So your public comment is limited just to what you'd like us to know. And so when you come up, please state your name, your address, and what you'd like to, and the item you would like to speak to us about. If it's on the agenda, this is the time that you can speak towards it. If it's not on the agenda, that happens at the end of the meeting. Can people in the hallway hear? Mike, do you have the ability to turn on a speaker in the hall? I don't. That I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if we have that ability. So, yeah. So, all right. Well, we'll move on to public comment. So, if anyone would like to come forward, state your name, your address, and the item that you'd like to speak about tonight, please come forward and state. And there's a button there. There you go.
All right, my name is Lee Whitney. I live at 3151 Quincy Street in Butte. I want to speak in relationship to Josh Bryson's presentation, which he's going to give later this evening, about the repository siting study. Communication number 2023529. A group of us got together when we heard that the Dublin Gulch was being considered as a repository of waste for waste from the Silver Creek corridor. We banded together with the sole mission of saving the Gulch from that fate. I'm representing many people like myself who are past residents of the Dublin Gulch and their kids, and neighbors from Corktown, the Anaconda Road, Bunkerville, and elsewhere who gathered in the Gulch as kids and as adults. There also are people in our group who visit the Gulch regularly during the year, or when they visit Butte on vacation, or just go up there. And some of us crazy people go up there a few times a year just to say hi. There are others from neighborhoods that no longer exist, such as McQueen, Meaderville, and East Butte. Their neighborhoods are gone, and there is no way to get back any semblance of them. We believe the Gulch, as the last old ethnic neighborhood, can represent not only its Irish history, but also other ethnicities as well. The Gulch is still accessible, if only visually at present, and we believe it is imperative for our community to enhance and preserve it in the best form possible. In her inventory of the Gulch, ARCO's archaeologist said that she considers the Gulch to be, quote, an increasingly rare remnant of an ethnic neighborhood, very few of which are left in any form today, unquote. That is a statement that should engender serious thought by everyone involved. ARCO and EPA can go a long way to garnering goodwill in the community by assisting us in enhancing and preserving an important part of our lives and those of our ancestors, and by allowing our legacy to pass to future generations. The members of our group want to work with ARCO, EPA, and Butte-Silver to figure out a feasible way we can preserve the Dublin Gulch and enhance the ethnic history of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. That might help.
Good evening. I'm Bill Foley at 804 Zerelda Street here in Butte. I'm here to speak for some of the residents from Centerville and Corktown who are here tonight for the presentation from Mr. Josh Bryson with Atlantic Richfield. They don't want dumping of toxic waste in their neighborhood, near their neighborhood, and more importantly, they don't want it dumped in any neighborhood. I have a petition that I handed out to you guys earlier That was the work of my friends Randy and Donna Merkich. They went door to door, not just in Centerville, they went around different places around town, and everyone was willing to sign it. I'm guessing if you took it to every house in Butte, you'd get 99% of the people would sign it. You know, it wasn't just the people whose neighborhoods are currently in the crosshairs. In 2020, I was part of a group that spoke out against plans to potentially dump the same waste in Timber Butte neighborhood by Copper Mountain Park. Went to some meetings where there's some angry residents, and rightfully so. And after that, BP, ARCO, the EPA, Butte-Silver Bow decided to back off because the people were so angry about the dumping by their neighborhood. Well, I'm here to tell you the residents of the Hill are pretty angry too. They're pretty scared. They're ready to fight for their neighborhood. And there's a lot more of them than there were from the Timber Butte neighborhood. The Repository Siting Committee apparently zoned in on the neighborhoods of Centerville, Courthouse, which includes the Kelly Mine Yard, the Dublin Gulch. There are some really historic ramifications, as Lee Whitney just spoke to, but it's just too close to homes. You know, that's what it came down to. We saw in the Montana Standard today that they're reporting on the leakage of the repository cap at Copper Mountain Park, and that just shows us that it's not safe. I mean, they'll tell us it's safe. They may believe it's safe, and I believe that they believe that, but it's safe until it's not safe. Like right now, it's not safe out there. The committee meetings were not open to the public when a lot of this was discussed. There's no minutes that I'm aware of. There's no publication of an agenda, so I don't know what else we could call them other than just not open meetings, I guess, if you don't like secret meetings being told. 2 commissioners at least are on this committee. They were living nowhere near Centerville. There's one resident who was on the committee who fought to keep this same waste from her neighborhood 3.5 years ago, and that should tell you all that you need to know about this. And I sympathize with her fight then. I sympathize with these people's fight now, because nobody should have to fight this fight. Nobody should have to wake up and read in the paper that their neighborhood could possibly be a dumping site for toxic materials. They worry. You know, I know people who lost sleep. They're worried about their health and safety with their conditions that they have if this stuff is not put in the pit, as we've been saying for quite some time, where it belongs. I imagine residents of other neighborhoods are probably worrying that they might be next. So tonight I ask you to consider an ordinance to ban dumping near anybody's home of toxic waste. I ask you to protect the citizens of this unnecessary infringement on our constitutional right to a healthy environment, and I ask you to protect us from these secret committees. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Foley.
Hello, my name's Rick Wagner. I live at 125 East Center Street. My thoughts are that I don't think that our homes, just because maybe Centerville doesn't have the fanciest homes in the town, and maybe they don't have the richest place, and we do have rental properties. But we have a lot of families lately that have moved in with very small children. And I own my home with my husband, Gary, we're obviously no spring chickens, but when we give up our house, it'll go to my children and grandchildren. And I don't think they should have to be subjected to toxic waste if they don't have to. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wagner.
Hi there. My name is Jessica Wicks. I'm actually a resident of Anaconda, but I am currently a candidate for Senate District 36, which includes Centerville and the Berkeley Pit. And coming from Anaconda, we're not strangers to the Superfund issue. And I would just like to say that our communities have waited this long to get to this point in the cleanup, and it's really important that we get it right, because we may not get a second chance at it. And the second chance will be another 20 years down the road. So putting it in our neighborhoods is not the solution. I understand ARCO has to go through the options and is presenting options. I understand that. This is not the winning option. And, you know, if something could be done where it is put over by the Berkeley pit or into the Berkeley pit, because honestly, we've kind of accepted that as what it is. I think that that would be a winning solution. But just keep that in mind that we need to get it right the first time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wick.
Hi, my name's Gary Stallings. I live at 125 East Center Street, and we have toxic waste in our neighborhood already, and we don't need any more. There's a gulch that has opened up next to La Platte, and the untreated dirt has opened a ditch up there that's probably 8 to 10 inches deep, and it's run down the hill, and it lands right behind the daycare on Center Street. And so all these little kids are out there playing every day in this yard that's contaminated. I don't know whether they've had their yard done or not as far as reclaimed, but the dirt that's coming from on top of the hill is going down there and resting right behind that house. And I just think that if we're not taking care of the toxic waste that's there already, we sure as heck don't need any more up there.
Thank you, Mr. Stallings. Is there anyone else that would like to come forward and state their name, address?
Sure. Rich Penhaligon, 828 West Court Street. I remember 15, 20 years ago up at Tech, they were talking about the toxic mess next to the Civic Center. And the representative from ARCO got up there and said, we have a room full of lawyers. We're never going to dig that up. It's all fine. I went to a CTEC meeting maybe 10 years ago, 8 years ago, I can't remember, where they sat there, and I'll leave that alone, but I have friends who are geologists and whatever, and I'd heard about the migration of the water, toxic water from the Civic Center. And I got up and said something at the CTEC meeting. Our co-representative got up and promptly berated me to no freaking end. Did anyone on CTEC thing come to my aid or anything? Zero. I sat there and just had to take it, and that's fine. But you see what the Civic Center is now? See what was dug up? And the reason why? Because it isn't safe until it's not safe. It's exactly what Mr. Foley said. Please, don't keep dumping stuff, and don't dump stuff uptown. We're tired of it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, my name's Randy Murkich, and I live at 131 East Center Street, across from the park up there. And folks, please, don't dump this up there. There are children that play up there. There are elderly people that walk out every day. There are people from out of state, out of the country, that come up there and walk. And they're amazed by this. They're going to be more amazed when you put a toxic dump next to it. And they won't be able to walk no more. It's going to be a sad day. If you guys do this, it's going to be a sad, sad day. Please don't put it up there. That's all I'm asking you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Murkich. Is there any other public comment on any item on the agenda?
My name is Jim Kane. I live at 2131 Wall Street. I don't live in Centerville, but I sure applaud these people for being here. A lot of people are afraid to come up before people and talk, but that's not it. There's a win-win solution here. It's real easy, and you people have to make that decision. I understand that. The solution is put it in the pit. And I think it's starting to get some legs. It's the logical place. It's got a water cap. It's in perpetuity. We don't have to maintain it.
and these people are happy. They won't be at the meeting, and the stuff won't be there. Nobody sees it. Josh had concerns up in Centerville about pushing it over. Okay, slurry it, conveyor it over, slurry it, run a pipe down into the pit, put it in there. There's also going to be some people, let's talk about stabilization. That's going to come up. I think what should be done, and I think ARCO and the mine should do this, is they have all the information they need at the Bureau of Mines and Geology. They've been looking at the water, they've been looking at the water levels, and they've been looking at what the acidity of what 1 million cubic yards of dirt would do. Solution is put it in the pit, and these people all stay home. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Kane. Is there any other public comment? Welcome.
Hello. My name is Kate. Oh. Am I good? My name is Caitlin Beely, and I am here to speak on the transparency resolution and my previous comments that have apparently been a really big hit around town. So commissioners, I spoke up on concerns about transparency, citing very pertinent design document and the so-called experts missed by leaving waste in place in a floodplain. I also noted that I have requested documents from RMAP. I was grilled why I wanted it, accused of having some motive to alter it, and completely denied an accessible copy. It is not Eric Hassler's business, but I've had 2 brain surgeries, and the large documents, they're pretty detailed and not exactly easy to digest. So being able to listen to them is a great way to consume the information. I don't also appreciate the condescending remarks from the gentleman who once stood on the side of science, insinuating that people are either lazy or stupid, saying up here, "Have you read it?" Well, I have tried to read it, and I cannot get an accessible copy. It's 2023. Why is the only version of this PDF some ridiculous photocopied, marked up version that was photocopied the year I was a freshman in college, 2006? That's what your legal team is working off of? What I did get, though, is harassment. I found out my local government stuck DEQ and Joe Griffin on me and have been accused of working for John Tester's office, which is actually a pretty, I'm proud to say that, but unfortunately I don't work for John Tester's office, and I'm a graphic designer, so if anybody is looking for work, what better time to announce it? I discovered that the EPA's regional administrator was here lobbying for some of you, not all of you, ironically, while you were debating transparency. I simply asked for transparency of my local elected officials, a right, according to recent litigation, that I should not face stalking started by my local government from a man who is claiming to be part of DEQ, denies the affiliation. It's also worth noting he chooses what affiliation he is based on, considering what suits him at the time. When Mr. Griffin was working as a consultant during his time at DEQ, is he now working under a consulting firm that is not licensed? Kind of makes you wonder. The journalist background in me prompted me to do some research when I found out Mr. Griffin and these so-called experts maybe weren't as qualified as we thought. Mr. Griffin has 2 geology degrees, not hydrogeology degrees. I heard my own commissioner, Mr. O'Neill, say, "I don't care what the public thinks," and it's kind of a prerequisite to the job. In a representative republic, he should consider stepping down to allow room for somebody who does care. And all of you who praise people who have a long record of retaliating against scientists and citizens should be ashamed. That's not right, and it feels more like Russia than the United States. Finally, I saw the edits to the resolution by the county attorney. I've read the charter, and the commission sets policy. You should soundly reject those edits, and pontificating for the chief executive.
Ma'am, your time is up. I appreciate we have this up here for your indication, but thank you for your comments.
All right, I'll just be submitting that to the council so you guys can hear the rest of my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Don Foley. I live in 17 Wells Street in Centerville, and I'll keep it short, but me and I think a few other people here who are not speaking necessarily are opposed to dumping, additional toxic waste in our neighborhood or any other. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Foley.
My name is Jim Michelotti. I live at 1410 West Steele. My previous address was 2300 Cottonwood in McQueen. I grew up in McQueen and Meaderville, and most people at least know where McQueen and Meaderville is. What I want to leave a message with you is that I've sat with this group a few times. I've just got involved with it lately. And there's a lot more to what's going on than what you hear tonight. I mean, you have to deal with a serious problem of where to put the waste. But we've also looked very hard at a positive approach that would give us a location where people can come and view all of Butte as it was when it was in neighborhoods. And Dublin Gulch may not be the best place, but it's the last place that we can do that. And what I would encourage you to do is to keep in mind that there is a future to this that is depending on your decision. I think it's very important that it be placed, we call it the Interpretive Center. They started calling it the Irish Interpretive Center, and I changed it. I had them change it so that it would use the rest of the nationalities in this process. But the side that I want to bring to your attention is I also do a lot of work at the archives. And we have all this stuff sitting in the archives, in the vault there, safe, but nobody ever sees it. We need a place to brag about Butte and to sit and stand and point at that. Walkerville's over there. McQueen was down there. Meaderville was over there. And so I leave you with the thought that there is a lot of consideration being going into not only where it should be dumped, but what should be done with it once it isn't dumped there.
Thank you, Mr. Michelotti. Is there any other public comment on any item on the agenda tonight? Please come forward.
Thanks, everyone. As you know, I'm Dan Olson, 1066 Standby Creek Road. Tonight, I come to talk to you about Section 7, suspension of the rules for final passage of Resolution 2023-60. Usually, a suspension of the rules is for final passage is required to address a critical issue, in which time is of the essence, and Butte-Silver has no control to address it in any other fashion. And yes, for a resolution, the council has a right to pass a resolution during a single meeting. Yes, a resolution is merely a statement of decision or direction to take a specific action. I find it curious that the title of the resolution incorporates the ideas of commitments, communication, and public transparency. Yet it appears that this was this first and final reading for passage be placed on the fast track, highballing through the council as quickly as possible. So from the top, Section 2 states to protect the community, and yet it declares that answers will always be given, the answer will always be given, use of urban roads to transport contaminated materials to the selected repository shall be a last resort. An earlier rendition of this resolution directed that deviations from the CD and commitments to the public be driven by science and public input. Sad to say, I believe that science and informed public input should always be the case. Section 3, Butte-Silver can ask EPA to have meetings to allow for an opportunity for the public to observe, but that the EPA it's up to the EPA and out of Butte-Silver's jurisdiction. Posting the meetings before their occurrence is a pretty nebulous and a nebulous statement and should actually state a time prior to the meeting. such as 48-hour workday hours. Otherwise, they could be posted just prior to the meeting starting. So there's some holes in this. In conclusion of my remarks to the resolution, I don't see much to this resolution other than to provide a response to those unidentified folks who have been vocal in their opposition to completing the BIPSU clamp. I suggest to table this resolution in its current form and take a different approach to achieving the demands incorporated into this version. Speaking for myself, I've seen significant contributions of CTEC and its technical staff and members that have made so far notable change charting the course of the implementation of the BIPSU CD, focused on published health and the environment, as in the Grove Gulch and Buffalo Gulch remedial design documents have progressed through the stages. Those changes and everything CTEC does focuses on public health. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. I think you turned it off, Evan. There you go.
Mr. Chairman, members of the council, my name is Evan Barrett. I live at 807 West Silver Street. I too want to speak about what's under Section 7, the suspension of the rules. As someone who's worked with you for a long time now on this resolution, I'm compelled to make the following comments. The way that the resolution is being presented tonight is totally unacceptable. I cannot support it the way it's written, and I don't think that you should be able to support it as well. Respectfully and regretfully, I must submit that I believe the county attorney has exceeded her authority. The policy-making body of Butte-Silver is you, the Council of Commissioners, not the county attorney. She has changed more than the form of the resolution. She has changed the substance of the resolution. And I believe her actions in this regards have been improper. The bottom line is that she has misrepresented the presentations made in 2018. That is pointed out, and that's pointed out in the handouts I'm going to give to you. In 2018, the resolution, she makes a statement that says that in one of the whereases talked about the possibility of leaving contaminated materials in place. But the presentation made by Butte-Silver and the other parties here does not say that. It says that the excavated materials, including uncontaminated soil and small concrete, may be reused. It's a total misrepresentation of what was presented in 2018. In addition, the entire Section 1, the original Section 1, has been completely removed by the county attorney. That is the section that referred to, made reference to, quote, cleaner being better than waste in place. I don't believe you as a council, that's been removed totally. I don't believe you as a council want to find yourself defending the removal of a policy that cleaner is better than waste in place. And that's one of the most important things in that resolution. So, I'm going to wrap up here. My recommendation to you is do not suspend the rules. Allow the resolution to remain where it is. If you don't suspend the rules, it'll stay in the committee of the whole. And there you as a council can work to restore the integrity of this resolution, which had many important things in it, which are now missing. So I suggest that you go that route. I'm sorry about this, but I think it's been improperly changed and should not be passed and dealt with tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett. Do we have any other public comment on any item that's on the agenda tonight? Seeing none, we'll move forward to, Oh, we have one to be read in. Okay, I'm sorry. We have one letter to be read into the record. And the clerk will read that in.
Dear Commissioners, I'm writing to provide insights and comments on Council Resolution number 2023-60. Having followed the resolution since its introduction as Draft Communication 2023-436, I was surprised and concerned that the resolution, having been rewritten by the County Attorney's Office, is now on the Council agenda under Resolutions and Ordinances, suspension of the rules for final passage. Seeking final passage by suspending the rules is clearly contrary to the Council's expressed concern for transparency with community members, specifically Butte residents such as myself, who have provided technical details and rational arguments against the resolution. What's the rush? This Council owes its constituency a fully vetted Resolution 2023-60 that has not been hurried to a final vote. Here are my arguments against Resolution 2023-60. EPA has sole decision and enforcement authority. In the recitals portion of the resolution, the second whereas refers to the 2018 agreement in principle as a relevant basis for the resolution. However, the only relevant document in the case should be EPA's 2019 proposed plan to amend the 2016-2011 record of decision. Much of the Council's resolution seems predicated on a belief that major decisions have been made without public input, without transparency, and primarily that the decision to reuse excavated contaminated materials was part of the confidential consent decree negotiations. However, EPA has sole decision and enforcement authority to establish the remedy. EPA often states that their decisions were made in consultation with Montana Department of Environmental Quality. Montana DEQ is the state agency with the specific role of helping determine the remedy. In the end, DEQ has influence but no authority over the final decision. However, DEQ wrote a letter of concurrence with EPA's remedy that is attached to the ROD. As for public involvement, the EPA allowed the public ample opportunity to comment on the proposed plan and then responded to all comments in their 247-page responsiveness summary supplied upon request, which was included in the 2020 BIPSU amended record of decision. As for the question of transparency and leaving contaminated materials in place as stated in the second whereas, EPA was clear and open with the public that the remedy, as specified in the ROD, would protect human health and the environment. Transparency and communication within the public. The most problematic of the enumerated policy portion of the resolution is Section 3.
We're going to have to, as we gave everyone the same levity there, 3 minutes for everybody, so.
That was from
please.
Joe Griffin, VP Citizens Technical Environmental Committee.
Thank you. Before we wrap up, do we have any other public comment? Shut this off. Okay, so moving on. We'll move on to Section 1, bid openings, public hearings, and or presentations and or petitions. We have petitions and some public hearings. County Attorney, do we have proof of publication?
Mr. Chief Executive, there is proof of publication for all 5 public hearings. The 6th one on the agenda has been moved because there was not proof of publication for that hearing.
Okay. Thank you, County Attorney Joyce. We'll move on to number 1, petition number 2023-01. David Gary, Butte-Silver Bowl Lands Record Coordinator, has a petition that was filed with the Land Records Office to close and vacate for a platted and undeveloped portion of the Discovery Drive located in Section 25, Township 03, North, Range 08, West Principal Meridian, Montana, Butte-Silver Bow, City, County, Montana. The right-of-way is adjacent to Lot 7 of the Copper Peak Subdivision, Phase 1, Plat 2264-B, and Lot 6 of the amended plat of the Copper Peak Subdivision, Phase 1. The certificate of survey is 1078B-RB, and there's an attached map. Is Mr. Aguirre here. Welcome, Mr. Aguirre.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive, members of the council. For the record, David Gary, Land Records Coordinator. I guess I'm here tonight to just give you a quick overview of petition number 2023-01, which is a petition from Brandon Lake Development Corporation. Their petition to Butte-Silver to vacate a portion of the dedicated but undeveloped portion of Discovery Drive. I'm not sure what button to hit here. Somebody know? Pardon me? Oh, okay, go ahead to the next slide, I guess. All right, this one just summarizes the various steps throughout the portion. You know that we've had a few of these lately, so I certainly won't read them to you. I guess I would just point out that we did notify internal, external departments, had no objections to the petition, and we had no requests for easements. And we did, as Ms. Joyce said, we did take care of the public notice requirements by publishing twice in the newspaper. So that brings us to the public hearing portion tonight, which we're here to gather public input on interest on this petition. This picture's worth 1,000 words, right? This is kind of the overview of what is going on, what is being requested. The big building in the middle there with the white roof, that's actually the YMCA. And Discovery Drive starts at Hanson Road to the northwest a little bit and circles around the Y until it intersects with Washoe Street. And across Washoe Street, where the parcel is identified with red slash marks, is actually the portion of Discovery Drive that is requesting to be vacated. The reason that they're requesting to vacate this portion of Discovery Drive is simply a change in their plans to further develop the area. Next question, this is just a picture of the area to be vacated. I'm standing at the corner of Discovery Drive and Washoe Drive there looking southeast. And that's kind of the summary of it, but I would certainly stand for questions if you have any of me.
Do commissioners have any questions? Commissioner Anderson.
Thank you for the presentation. I just want to, that street dead ends there, right? It's just removing a small little piece, but it dead ends there, correct? It doesn't go through to anywhere else, correct?
Commissioner Anderson, Mr. Aguirre, you're fine.
Sorry, Mr. Chief Executive, Commissioner Anderson. Getting better at the process here. But right now it does dead end into Washoe Street. It's platted to go beyond that. Okay. It's platted to go beyond that right now. It's never been finished because the intent of that portion of Discovery Drive was to provide access to the big parcel to the south. As part of their development plan now that has changed, they would provide access to that portion when it's further developed from Hanson Road.
Are you okay? Thank you, Mr. Aguirre. Are you okay? Okay. Thank you. Is there any other questions of commissioners? Commissioner Reardon.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. Question, I'm familiar with this area, and Brandon Lake's owned that property for quite a while. What is the zoning on this? I know that there's been a beer business and also a garage that is presently occupied or was by a construction company. So is this going to, what is the zoning aspect? Is it going to be multi? Is it going to be housing? Or is it going to be basically for steel structure buildings or businesses?
Commissioner Reardon, Mr. Aguirre.
So you're quickly getting out of my area of expertise. I don't really deal with zoning. Lila may be here to be able to answer that question. She's the senior planner.
Okay.
But nothing regarding the petition or anything is going to change zoning.
Okay.
Thank you. I think we could have Julia Crane, our
Yeah.
planning director, come up. Welcome, Ms. Crane. Mrs. Crane. Ms. Crane.
Ms. Crane.
Yeah.
Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner Reardon, this particular area is zoned C3, which is essential commercial, and that is the current zoning. As you will notice on the agenda tonight, there may be future zoning changes that may apply to this area in the future. However, it would be our endeavor to keep this zoning in this area consistent with the use in the area for now. C3 is the heaviest commercial zoning district that we have in the community, and nearly everything that you listed in your summary would be allowed in this particular district.
Thank you, Ms. Crane.
Yeah, thank you for your knowledge. Appreciate it.
All right, any other questions of commissioners? Seeing none, I'll open the public hearing. First, I'll call for proponents. First call for proponents.
Good evening.
Welcome, Mr. Brandon.
Gallagher and commissioners. My name's Bill Brandon with Brandon Legg, and we started this project in '98 and came up with a master plan, and we had a phase development. The first phase is developed with the YMCA and some other commercial aspects. We went from there, continuing discovery, but the market changed on us, and now that we're kind of 20 years later, we're finding that the market's come up with another plan. So basically all we're doing is changing it a little bit to accommodate the market.
Thank you, Mr. Brandon.
Thank you. Any questions?
No, I don't think. Okay. Second call for proponents. Third and final call for proponents. Next, we'll move to opponents. First call for opponents. Second call for opponents. Third and final call for opponents. I'll close the public hearing. Next, we'll move on to public hearings. Number 1, communication number 2023-508. Kristen Rosa, Economic Development Coordinator, requesting Council Commissioners approval to hold a public hearing on November 1st, 2023 to hear public comment on the proposed amendments to the South Butte Targeted Economic Development District Plan. Ms. Rosa.
Thanks, Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioners. As you know, we've been up here before talking to you about these, but this is the public hearing part of our process. This first public hearing is for the South Butte, the industrial park. We are looking to expand the boundaries by including some property that was not zoned industrial when we first put the district in place, and it has now been rezoned and is now industrial, and it is owned, a majority of it is owned by John McDermott, and he is actively pursuing industrial development, and we would like to support him in those endeavors. One thing just in general about all of these, just want to reiterate, we are looking to put a tax increment provision in place. Tax increment does not increase your property taxes. It is, you pay the exact same number of mills, exact same property taxes for the same value as anybody else in the taxing jurisdiction. Just want to make sure that that is understood.
Thank you, Ms. Rosa. Is there any questions of commissioners? Seeing none, I'll open the public hearing. First call for proponents.
Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioners, I'm John McDermott. I'm in full support of the proposal. It just seems to make sense to bring resources back into the district, so I just think it's a great move.
Thank you, Mr. McDermott. Go ahead, Mr. Olson.
Dan Olson, back again, 1066 Standby Creek Road. This TED district, well, back in the day I was actually on the this TED board. It's out in my area where I live now, and I'm in full support of it. I've seen the positive things that the Teds and Tiffids have done throughout the county. I'm in full support of this, and thumbs up, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. Welcome, Mr. Fortune.
Hello, Mr. Gallagher. How are you?
Good.
How are you guys doing tonight? I would like to just speak in favor of this project. I don't know if anybody knows, but we are actually out there. We got a pretty substantial sized building going on as we speak out there. It's created a lot of work for local contractors and people in town. And I do also, I know it probably wasn't the time and the place, but I kind of forgot to be up for the last one because we were actually doing the project on the last one too. So I don't know if I'm kind of out of line, but you know, I just like to speak highly of that one also because it does create work and local contractors. So I was kind of asleep at the wheel there. I kind of missed my spot, but both projects are great projects. Not only does it create work for people, it keeps all of our subcontractors working, and it creates jobs when the projects are done. So I think they both be great jobs for Butte, and I appreciate your guys' help backing us on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fortune. Second call for proponents. Third and final call for proponents. Next, we'll move to opponents. First call for opponents. Second call for opponents. Third and final call for opponents. We'll close the public hearing. Next, we'll move on to item number 2, communication number 2023-509. Kristen Rosa, Economic Development Coordinator, requesting Council Commissioners approval to hold a public hearing on November 1st, 2023 to hear public comment on the proposed amendments to the Butte Uptown Renewal District Plan. Ms. Burns.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher and members of council. I'm Karen Burns, Director of Community Development. We're going to tag team these public hearings tonight. This public hearing tonight is for the proposed expansion and amendment of the Uptown Urban Renewal District boundary and adding projects to our plan, which need to be adopted by ordinance for us to be able to undertake those projects. As I wanted to reiterate again what Kristen Rosa said, we won't repeat ourselves. We are implementing a tax increment financing provision on this expansion. That is not a new tax. It's not a new cost to anyone that's within our district. It can only benefit them if we're able to undertake projects within that district. I also wanted to mention that the expansion of this boundary takes into effect.
I'd like to take a recess if we could, please.
Yes.
We're going to take a recess.
Call 911.
We're at, did we start the public hearing, or we were just finishing up on the public hearing? So, Director Burns, do you want to just lead us back into that, and not bring us back into session?
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive, members of council. My prayers are with Commissioner Anderson, and hope he's doing all right. So we were introducing the second public hearing tonight about the expansion or amendments to urban renewal districts. And so I just wanted to add one more comment before we open it up to public comment about the amendment to the plan for the urban renewal district of Uptown Butte. One of the things I wanted to mention is that one of our main goals of the expansion was to take into our boundaries, a 135-acre parcel that's owned by Butte-Silver. This parcel includes vacant land. It's already owned by Butte-Silver. It's not coming in a transfer. It's something that we've owned for many years. And this parcel includes streets and alleys and a lot of public right-of-way that is all part of one large parcel. It also includes vacant land that possibly could be developed. And so one of the major projects we'd like to undertake is to survey that parcel using possibly urban renewal funds to help get that done for the benefit of our public and our community and community and economic development. The other projects we'd like to implement that have not been mentioned in our plan are the Uptown Master Plan projects that were identified, and also our very own Motherlode Theater, which is a Butte-Silver owned building, and then it's in need of major improvements and repairs, and that could be something we could help fund through urban renewal dollars. And that's all I had to say for the opening. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Burns. Is there any questions for Director Burns from commissioners? Commissioner Reardon.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. Karen, thanks for all your hard work and all that. I think, you know, with the amount of people here tonight and all that, we're discussing parcels and all that. Do you have a location of this parcel of land that's owned by Butte-Silver?
Commissioner Reardon, Director Burns.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive, Commissioner Reardon, and the members of the council. Yes, in the map that's attached to the ordinance, the purple in that map is the expansion area, and the 135-acre parcel is directly in the center of that expansion. I can give you some roads. Let me grab my other handout.
Okay.
If you were to overlay this map of cadastral with the light blue, with the blue,
Right.
that would fit inside. That is the 135-acre parcel with the blue lines. And that fits inside that purple bit of the expansion district. And I have some of the, I think I have some, I'm sorry, I'm looking for the roads. It looks like it goes to up to Arizona Street on one side, East 2nd Street on one side. We go over to Jackson. We're going to expand up to West Boardman and the Anaconda Road, West Copper Street, in that area. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And here's the.
Yes, I seen a map.
Okay.
I just did this more or less for the people in the audience. There was a couple questions, and
Sure.
I think it's a great deal and all that. We might as well use it, right?
Yeah,
Thank you.
we might as well use it. And for those who are in neighborhoods that are taken into this district, what could be a benefit by expanding these boundaries is we could identify sidewalk projects, curb gutter projects, things like that, that we could enhance those neighborhoods. If there are parks within those neighborhoods, these funds could help enhance those parks and just be an overall benefit to any of the property owners within the district.
Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Burns. Is there any other questions of commissioners? Seeing none, I'll open the public hearing. First call for proponents. Welcome, Ms. Dodge.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher, Council of Commissioners. I'm Jocelyn Dodge, 114 Waldron here in Butte, and I am speaking on behalf of the expansion of this district. I've been president of the Motherlode Theater since 2018 and a part of the board since 2016. And since the last 5 years, we have been working in partnership with Butte-Silver for the Mother Lode Theater. You know, it is the last historic theater that we have here in Butte, and I have been working with the county, along with many of the grants that have been offered through the county, to work on rehabilitation and maintenance of this building. So the expansion of this district would be able to enable us to continue working with Butte-Silver in partnership, as well as we've been participating in the Uptown Master Plan. And so many of the projects that are also proposed that could be undertaken through the expansion of this district really help us not only in Uptown Butte and the economy, but Butte as part of our future as something to improve areas and businesses for our own residents, but also for potential new residents in coming into the community and part of that quality of life. We're really proud of being able to operate the Mother Lode Theater and be a part of Uptown Butte, and we look forward to being a part of continued resolution of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dodge.
Now, I also have been asked to read another comment that was provided from Maria Porchavina, who lives at 2511 Parrott Street here in Butte. To the Chief Executive and Council, good evening. I am writing in support of the ordinance to amend the Butte Uptown Urban Renewal Area. The work the URA has done over the many years has added to the value of our historic uptown assets. I am always pleased with the URA-funded projects, but the prospect of seeing additional projects such as the Mother Lode Theater and items from the Uptown Master Plan project to include pedestrian lighting, wayfinding, streetscape and walkability, and park access and improvements at the original mine is of special interest to me. Thank you to Karen Burns and the entire staff working hard to make Butte this amazing place we call home. Sincerely, Maria Porchavina.
Thank you, Ms. Dodge. Second call for proponents.
Good evening, Chief of the Council and the Council. I'm here with Danette Harrington. I live at 204 West Woolman, former resident of the Dublin Gulch, Butte, Montana, born and raised there. So I was here for that reason too. But I guess my inquiry would be is how far east is your boundary going to go on this? Anacott Road is real questionable. So I don't know how far east you go on that. Your map is pretty fuzzy to look at.
Ms. Harrington, Director Burns, I'm not sure if we can ask questions from the public. This is County Attorney Joyce. Are we the public? No. Yeah, we can only come up and speak in support of or against. But I see she's sharing information, so that we're good there. So I'll call. Second call if there's any more proponents that would like to come forward. Third call for proponents. Welcome.
Members of the council, Chief Executive Gallagher, Russell O'Leary, 2080 Beef Trail Road. I guess I'm not necessarily a proponent or opponent of this, just more two questions that could be addressed by staff. I know that the original renewal of this was in 2014, and I guess I'm wondering whether or not the new addition will go back to the increment from 2014, or if it will just start with the current tax base of 2023, and whether or not that's the case, if there's any worry from staff or anybody whether that will dilute the current concentration on Uptown Butte of the current money that's in the URA. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. O'Leary. Third call for proponents. Seeing none, I'll call for opponents. First call for opponents.
I'm Mitzi Rosillian. I'm at 815 West Granite, and I'm within the new amended urban district. In its current form, I am not in favor of this particular amendment nothing to do with the Uptown Master Plan or with the Montana Mother Lode Theater, but specifically with the area that is going to be within that district boundary on the hill. There is a lot of reclamation area that is within there, I would say, and there's a lot of property that has not been reclaimed. So for example, within the 130-acre parcel, there's as near as I can tell, there's a 7-acre syndicate pit. There's about 25 acres within the mountain con that would include the headframe hoist house and trails and reclaimed slopes. There's 4.5 acres of Green Mountain Mine, which has been capped but has not been reclaimed. And on the West Buffalo Street, both north and south of West Buffalo, there are 5 shafts, each of which are more than 250 feet deep, and so a 100-foot radius has to be held open so that are closed to development, plus all the reclamation grass that you see if you drive along Buffalo. And finally, part of that 130 acres, I believe, is the Anselmo Timber Yard, which has had no reclamation whatsoever. So my concern is that instead of 130 acres, we're talking about, which sounds like a lot of land, we're talking about something considerably smaller and also kind of broken up. So why do I care about the reclaimed parcels? I'm concerned that there would be a temptation to break the cap. And as soon as the cap is broken, then the dirt that is underneath the cap and is in a basement or on slab or used for water route development or for sanitary sewer, for whatever, that has to go into a repository. We have a repository that the county has right now that is 19 acres, and that repository is filling fast because it's used for remediation, remedial soils for residential soils, but it's also used for any time a cap is broken or there is dirt found within 1 cubic foot. Development of that area would essentially overload the repository, and we would have to find another repository on the hill. I think it's a serious consideration. I know it's not exactly part of this proposal, but it's a thought that we need to consider. Also, I'm concerned about infrastructure. Although there are utilities and there are streets, there is no water, there is no sewer on a lot of those individual parcels that would be developed, and there is no sanitary sewer hookups as well. So I would request that the council put this particular resolution in abeyance until some of these questions can be addressed directly by staff, particularly by reclamation staff concerning development of property that has been capped. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rosian. Is there any other opponents?
Good evening, everyone. My name's Bruce Nilsson. I live at 405 North Jackson. Just a couple things that I wanted to bring up. I got a copy of that thing as soon as I got it in the mail. I did a little research down in the office downstairs. I looked up the website for all the pertinent laws and regulations and everything else, and I am not a lawyer. I couldn't make heads or tails out of half of that crap. I'm just an old soldier. But I recognize mission creep when it pops up. First off, you guys want to work on the county stuff, you got land that already belongs to the county, drive on, do what you like. It's your stuff, do what you like. My property's my property. The example I was given is if I wanted to brick up a window or put a window in a wall, that they'd try to dissuade me otherwise. No, I paid my mortgage, it's mine, thank you. There was a couple of houses down at the end of my block. They've been abandoned for 20 years since the last time I come back from overseas. They've been abandoned. The county showed no interest in them. Now all of a sudden you guys want them. It's mission creep. The whole thing is, and everybody says, well, you can get money for this, you can get money for that, you can get money for this. Where does that money come from? There is nothing in this world that is free. If it doesn't come from my pocket, then it's going to come from some other taxpayer's pocket. Or it's going to come, we're going to do corporate taxes, or we're going to do ARCO, or wherever the hell the money comes from. Corporations don't pay money. They don't pay taxes. The people that buy the stuff that the corporations make, they pay the taxes through extra costs on the stuff that the corporation builds. You guys want to do stuff with the county, with your property? Have at it. You want to make things better for the parks, for the kids? Beautiful. I paid for my house. No, thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you, sir. Second call for opponents. Third and final call for opponents. I'll close the public hearing. Next, we'll move on to communication number 2023-510. Kristen Rosa, Economic Development Coordinator, requesting Council Commissioners approval to hold a public hearing on November 1st, 2023 to hear public comment on a proposed creation of the Montana Connections Targeted Economic Development District. Ms. Rosa.
Thank you, Chief Gallagher and Commissioners. So this is the third one, the final one. This is the creation of a new district. So we're looking where the TIFID was. We're looking to redraw the boundaries and create a new district and include a tax increment provision so we can continue the industrial development that we've had out there. All of the property inside that district is zoned RM2.
Any questions from commissioners? Commissioner Callahan.
Thank you, Chief Executive Cal. Kristen, is this the land that's south of the TIFID now?
Commissioner Callahan, Ms. Rosa.
Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner Callahan. So it will include the state parcel. I think that's what you're referring to. Yes. The state parcel was not included in the original TIFID boundaries, but this will include the state parcel.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions of commissioners? Seeing none, I'll open the public hearing. First call for proponents. Mr. Barrett.
Mr. Chairman, members of the council, Evan Barrett, 807 West Silver Street here in Butte. I rise obviously in strong support of the TIFID, is the term I like to use. I guess I'm stuck in the old world. But the Connections Park, as it has carried forth since it was first created, is the prime example of how tax income can be used in industrial purposes. There's no place in Montana that compares to the success Butte has had in utilizing tax increment financing to create growth and jobs, as evidenced out there in the Connections Park. And with the addition of the land, the state land, which was outside the boundaries when it was originally drawn, and having that almost full section added to it, it means that our growth can continue out there and continue to create jobs and tax base for a long period of time. Now, since the tax increment district out there ended, you've all been part of the recipients of the increment, is now part of your tax base. You now have that tax money to spend. So the premise is working out there. You create growth, and ultimately, at a certain period of time, that growth comes back to the local government, to the state, and the schools. This has been a magnificent success out there, and I urge you to make sure that you adopt this and we can move forward and continue to create dramatic economic growth out there in the industrial sector. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett. Second call for proponents. Third and final call for proponents. Moving on to opponents. First call for opponents. Second call for opponents. Third and final call for opponents. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Moving on to item number 4, communication number 2023-512, Morgan Massione. Thanks. I didn't want to blister it. Morgan Massione, Program Director of the Clark Chateau, requesting Council Commissioners approval to hold a public hearing on November 1st, 2023 regarding amending the fiscal year 2024 budget to allow for unanticipated revenue to the Clark Chateau budget. Ms. Massione, welcome.
Mr. Chief Executive and members of the council, thank you for having me. My name is Morgan Massione. I'm the program director at the Clark Chateau. I've requested this public hearing in regard to accepting unanticipated revenue for publishing an essay book. The Clark Chateau, as part of Butte-Silver County, received a $5,000 grant from Humanities Montana to publish a book of essays interpreting Butte mining and labor songs. This project stemmed from a concert and lecture series called New Songs for the Butte Mining Camp, which was based on a songbook of the same name that belongs to the Butte-Silver Public Archives. This essay book will serve as a conclusion to this concert and lecture series and will include original song lyrics as well as images and interpretive essays about songs and their Butte-specific references. Humanities Montana requires a one-to-one match of funds, which we will match in kind through Chateau staff salaries and book sales. So we ask that you add this $5,000 grant from Humanities Montana to the Clark Chateau budget for 2024. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Massione. Is there any questions of commissioners? Seeing none, I'll open the public hearing. Thank you. First call for proponents. Second call for proponents. Third and final call for proponents. Next, we'll move to opponents. First call for opponents. Second call for opponents. Third and final call for opponents. We'll close the public hearing. All right. The next communication, Commissioner or County Attorney Joyce, do I need to read through this since we do not have proof of publication?
Mr. Chief Executive, it's my understanding she's going to submit a new communication when the public hearing's been rescheduled, so.
Okay, so we don't need to even introduce this. Okay, thank you. Next, we'll move on to presentations. We have number one. Are we okay?
I believe last week at the Committee of the Whole meeting, that you placed that, her communication on file, this one, so I don't.
Oh, it just got placed on here. Okay, so it was already taken care of prior to. It was inadvertently put on the agenda. Okay, thank you. Next, we'll move on to presentations. Number one, communication number 2023-529. Josh Bryson, Atlantic Richfield Company Liability Manager, requesting time on the November 1st, 2023 Council of Commissioners regular meeting to present an update on Butte Priority Soils Operable Unit Remedial Design and Remedial Action Progress. Welcome, Mr. Bryson.
Thank you, Chief Executive, Council of Commissioners. My name is Josh Bryson. I am the Liability Manager with Atlantic Richfield Company. I've been working on the Butte Priority Soils Operable Unit since 2008. The last 5.5 years or so, I've been directly employed by Atlantic Richfield Company. Again,
I think just lift that up a little bit. That'll be better.
Apologies.
Thanks.
Is that better?
Yeah.
A little bit better. Okay. Thank you. Thoughts and prayers with Commissioner Anderson. I'm thankful for the opportunity to work on this project. When I first started seeing it come through, the consent decree negotiations, the record of decision, I thought that this project could be very impactful to our community, and I still feel that way. This is an opportunity for our community to move forward. The remediation actions that are complete, when they're complete, it'll allow the Butte community, the Butte Priority Soils Operable Unit, to be removed from the national priorities list. That's important to me, and I think it's important to everybody in this community. We're working hard to make that goal a reality. I think we all knew that there would be challenges along the way and potentially differences of opinion. However, the consent decree and the statement of work for the Butte Priority Soils Operable Unit provide us a mechanism to design and construct a remedy that is protective of human health and the environment. So tonight I'd like to present and discuss with you what those remedy requirements are, how those remedy requirements have changed between 2006 and 2020. I'd like to discuss briefly with you how we'll transport materials away from the project sites, but also bring materials into the project sites to reconstruct the areas. I'll provide you insight and a brief update on the repository siting study, and I'll discuss how we intend to manage the on-site reuse material. And finally, just a brief update on where we're at with the remedial design and remedial action progress. The remedy in Butte relies on 3 things to be successful, and those 3 things include management of contaminated soils, management of stormwater, and management of groundwater. The work I do focuses on the work in the corridor adjacent to Blacktail and Silverbow Creeks, so it's predominantly involves the environmental components. There in the corridor, we're managing contaminated soils in place by constructing vegetated caps. Those vegetated caps prevent erosion in stormwater, runoff from snowmelt, moving those contaminated sediments or contaminated waste into the streams. We manage stormwater by collecting it and allowing contaminated sediments to settle out. So when those contaminated sediments come off the hill with storm or snow water, snow melt, we catch those contaminated sediments, settle them out before water discharges to the stream. And finally, we manage groundwater by collecting it and treating it. We have existing hydraulic controls that collect groundwater, move it to the Butte treatment lagoons, and treat it before it's discharged. The success of the remedy is measured in the creek. Thank you. Yep. I mentioned the 2006 record of decision and now the 2020 ROD amendment. There are some significant changes in those 2 documents that I think are necessary to highlight. And I won't go through them all, but I think it's good to just look at them and how it's changed. Initially, the 2006 record of decision required us only to remove impacted sediments and clean the banks of Silverbow Creek between the confluence of Blacktail Creek and Silverbow Creek down through the slag wall to lower area 1. Now, in addition to that work, we've added on the requirements to remediate or restore Blacktail Creek from the confluence up to Grove Gulch. That work will be completed by the state of Montana. The record of decision 2006 called for appropriate hydraulic controls to control impacted water. Now we have a definition of what those hydraulic controls will be. We're going to install hydraulic controls at Blacktail Creek to protect that stream after it's reconstructed, and we're going to install hydraulic controls in Butte reduction works to protect Silverbow Creek. The former stormwater process included an iterative concept. It required 7 cycles of BMPs to be evaluated and installed over time. We made it through 3 cycles and we did see improvements, but the 4th cycle, 5th cycle, 6th cycle, and even the 7th were undefined. What the remedy does now is it requires us simply to construct those stormwater basins at the bottom of the Butte Hill to protect surface water. 2006 ROD required consideration of conventional water treatment at the bottom of the Butte Hill. That would have required construction of a large mechanized system, a building in the middle of Butte at the base of the Butte Hill to treat stormwater versus what we're proposing now to implement nature-based solutions and construct a park. The 2020 ROD still does include consideration of BMFU discharge when it does discharge to meet our standards, but it more so relies on the remedy itself. We're required to construct the remedy, and after we construct that remedy, we have to operate and maintain it. We have to determine how we can optimize its performance to make the remedy work. Initially, infiltration barriers were included at Northside tailings and digging seas to prevent water from going into the waste that were once proposed to remain on site. Now we're required to remove significant amounts of waste from those project areas. We're also required to optimize the groundwater remedy that's there. So in addition to the hydraulic controls that will be installed at Blacktail Creek and those that will be installed at Butte Reduction Works, we're required to look at the systems that we have today to see if we can improve its efficiency, to see if we can improve the maintenance on that system. So we'll capture and treat more stormwater, we'll capture and treat more groundwater, and we're going to remove significant quantities of waste material from the entire corridor. Surface water quality will continue to improve as the final pieces of this remedy are constructed. This may be a little difficult to see, but I hope you can, but the intent of this slide is to show that since we've been implementing work, as long as 20 years ago and even before that, we began to see significant improvements in water quality in the stream. These measurements are taken at Stream Station 07, which is on the far west end of Pitt by the interstate bridges down by Ranchland Packing. The graphic on the left shows dissolved copper concentrations and how they've been behaving since 2004 up through 2020 on this graphic. The red line is the standard. The red line is the standard. Since 2012, you can see that the green trend line has begun to dip below that standard and has stayed there pretty consistently. We've had one exceedance of dissolved metals standard since 2019, and that was for aluminum. graphic on the right shows surface water quality standards as related to storm flow, wet weather flow we call it. So when it's raining on the hill or there's snow melt running off the hill and reporting to the stream. You can see that that graph shows a trend that was also coming down, getting closer to the standard, but we haven't been able to get there. When it rains, we still have exceedances of those total metal concentrations. In my view, that's the reason, the difference between that green line still being above that standard of why we're doing this work in the corridor for the environmental component. And this is where that work will be done. It's in the corridor, down along the streams, just off the Montana Street, adjacent to the visitor center, the KOA, and the communities. At Grove Gulch, Buffalo Gulch, Northside Tailings, and Diggings East, we're going to construct those large stormwater basins to manage that storm flow that comes off the hill. At any given time, we'll be able to collect and manage about 55 acre-feet of stormwater. And just to visualize how much water that is, that's a swimming pool the size of a football field, so Naranche Field, goal line to goal line, sideline to sideline, but 55 feet deep. At any time when there's stormwater coming off the hill, we could manage 55 acre-feet of stormwater. At Blacktail Creek, the state of Montana will perform removals of impacted sediment and waste and then reconstruct that stream using Atlantic Richfield funds. At Blacktail Creek, we'll also install a hydraulic control system to prevent contaminated water, groundwater, from getting back to that stream and recontaminating those sediments in that stream after that work's done. At Butte Reduction Works, on the left side of the image, we're going to remove contaminated soils from the southern half of the area, and then we're going to realign Silverbow Creek through that new 100-year floodplain. And again, at Butte Reduction Works, we're going to install in more hydraulic controls to collect more contaminated groundwater to treat it before it's released to Silverbow Creek. What you don't see on here is the groundwater remedy optimization that I also mentioned. Beneath this is the existing hydraulic control system, the BIPSU subdrain. We're going to evaluate that system, see if we can improve its performance, and the new systems will tie into it and also report to the Butte treatment lagoons. Completion of these actions will help us maintain that compliance during base flow for that dissolved standard that I show you. And they're going to help us get below the standard during wet weather flow. To do this work, we have to remove approximately 850,000 cubic yards of mine waste. That's a lot of material to take out of this area. On the backside of that, we also have to bring in about 550,000 cubic yards of clean fill material to reconstruct the project sites. Placement of that material, that clean material, will help us form the stormwater basins and deliver the final landscape condition and land use amenities that Atlantic Richfield still remains committed to providing. Material transport. So overall, 850,000 cubic yards, go back one, of waste material needs to come out of the project sites, and 550,000 cubic yards of backfill material needs to come back into the sites. It's 1.4 million cubic yards of material that needs to be managed in these project areas. The 550,000 cubic yards of backfill material will come from our Helahan-Barrow area predominantly, located west of Rocker, out by the drive-in, by the Tiffin, on trucks. We need to get that material back in town to these project areas by truck to backfill these project sites. We've been evaluating, as Chief Executive Gallagher said, how to best get that 850,000 cubic yards of mine waste out of town. We've evaluated street legal haul trucks, conveyors, rail systems, and different combinations of all those methods. From a practical standpoint, it was determined that haul trucks were the best alternative, the most practical. From a community standpoint, that's not the case. As Chief Executive Gallagher mentioned, we are evaluating the use of conveyors and how we can utilize those to advance this project in a practical and efficient manner. Thank you. I was told this was also a bad map, so I feel Karen's pain a little bit today. This is simply an image of what a conveyor alignment could look like. What this is meant to show is that a conveyor will be installed to mitigate traffic impacts to both Front Street and Harrison Avenue. My team is in town today evaluating the potential alignments and how this could best serve the projects to help us get this work done efficiently and keep trucks off the roads. When we get this whole system designed, which we think will be within 3 to 4 months, just for awareness, best case scenario, the conveyor could be here 6 months after that. So potentially late summer next year, the conveyor could be here to begin assembling it. A more realistic scenario is that it could take up to 12 months, potentially longer, until we get that conveyor here in Butte and are able to assemble it to support the performance of those projects. This is a similar graphic to what I showed earlier, just on the upstream end, if you will, of the proposed conveyor system. And this just represents how we may move the material from the Civic Center up into the mine area into a potential repository location that has not been selected yet. What we'd want to do is potentially put the material on off-road haul trucks, utilize the NRD haul route that they used, traveling adjacent to the ET cover, and then underneath the railroad bridges, underneath Shields Avenue, and then onto Montana Resources property. From there, we would travel up the hill to a potential repository location. To be clear, the use of a conveyor will not prevent the need to use trucks on the streets. We need to get the material to a conveyor location. We need to bring that backfill material into Butte. There are certain wastes that we can't put on the conveyor, like probably those that are impacted with contaminated hydrocarbons, and also oversized material that may damage the conveyor if it's too large, too heavy. And then for construction materials that we need to bring back into the site, things like liner, and again, the backfill, landscape trees, stones, boulders, general construction materials, those will have to come into the project sites on truck. Completion of the repository siting study is a requirement of the consent decree. EPA issued Atlantic Richfield and Butte-Silver a letter providing us guidance on how to perform that study in June of 2020. We're required to evaluate locations throughout Butte against certain criteria that include factors related to human health and the environment, property ownership, and other regulatory factors. The letter also required us to form a committee to help guide us through that process. Part of the membership of the committee includes people like myself, primary stakeholders, in addition to members of Butte-Silver Department of Reclamation, members of EPA, and of DEQ. And Chief Executive Gallagher appointed additional members to be representative of the public, including commissioners, representatives of CTEC, and of the general public itself. The committee picked up on this process from where the 1992 siting study left off. That 1992 effort identified 50 locations that they felt were appropriate for consideration as repository locations, and then they narrowed that group of 50 potential locations down to 10. That's where we started. When we began the repository siting study, the message was pretty clear that the community wanted the material taken up from the project areas to the mine. Even though we had a clear message from the community, we were still required to go through the process. And we've been trying to be very deliberate and very patient with that process from lessons learned with the Timber Butte community. We took a look at the 10 preferred locations for the 1992 study and applied our screening criteria. Oh, you go then. Oh, never mind. Thank you. Applied the screening criteria to them. Who owns the property? Is there sufficient capacity to put the waste material there? What are the regulatory or zoning constraints? And can we meet applicable or relevant and appropriate requirements? Additional. It could also be considered a regulatory item. The initial screening allowed us to reduce our remaining focus to 4 locations that required additional evaluation. Those are shown here on the map, kind of with the black hatch. The one on the lower left would be called Whiskey Gulch 1 and the Interstate Pit. The one above it would be Whiskey Gulch 2, which would be located west of Montana Tech. Another location that was considered is the Pittsmont dump, located within the active mine area, over on the far right in the yellow. And up above the Berkeley pit, you can see our existing Butte mine waste repository and the northwest dumps. We took those 4 locations, next slide please, and applied additional modifying criteria. And you can see those here on this chart that include things like protection of human health, environmental protection, transportation safety, haul route feasibility, site characteristics, community development, and cultural resources. Just gives you a little insight to the process that we go through to take a look at these. Through the application of those modifying criteria, we kind of began to lean towards the Pittsmont dump. We ran into some challenges with the Pittsmont dump, though, because it's not advantageous to an active mining operation to place additional mine waste over the central ore body when it's being regulated as a circular waste. And what that means to say is that if we were to put it there as a repository, we'd have to go into the mine area, monitor the cap, monitor the performance, and it effectively would have to stay there. It's in the way. So we needed to pivot to potentially new locations. At a June update meeting with the Repository Siting Study Committee, I introduced the concept of the Kelly Mine area. We felt it merited at least consideration and further evaluation, and after discussing with the Repository Siting Study, we began our efforts to engage with the community of Centerville. So this is the concept of where waste may be placed above the Kelly Mine, this Kelly Mine area in total. Overall, it's about 60 acres in size. We divided it into sub-areas. Kelly A and B are the lower 2, right adjacent to Foreman's Park. Kelly A and B are both owned by Atlantic Richfield Company, and you can see, and we're certainly aware that Dublin Gulch is located right in the middle of the bottom of the Kelly A area. We will avoid Dublin Gulch if we have to go this route. We will avoid Dublin Gulch and keep waste out of that polygon that you see on here that Mitzi's identified and performed a cultural resource of. Butte-Silver Bow owns sub-areas C, D, and E. Now, we've already talked about Kelly D area up at the Centerville community meeting. It is very close to the community of Centerville. It's very close to the community of Centerville, and we're very cognizant of that. Now, my presentation here tonight and my presentation at Centerville is not to tell you that we've made a decision. Chief Executive Gallagher said it very well. No decision has been made on where this repository will be located. No decision has been made. We've heard the community request that we take a serious look at placing the waste into the Berkeley pit. And we, along with Butte-Silver Bow and the remaining stakeholders, are in the process of doing that. We need to make sure that we can do the work safely and that the work is consistent with the remedy and the waste repository requirements. Please understand, though, that if we're able to use the Berkeley pit, there may be some materials that cannot be reposed in it. Those materials that are impacted by diesel or the community gas plume, hydrocarbon contaminated materials. Large and oversized materials that may not be able to go on the conveyor. If we can't get them on the conveyor to get them over there, we're gonna have to figure out a different solution to manage those large materials. And there's materials with naturally occurring organic materials, matter within them, within the soil. We have to be diligent about our analysis of how placing these materials in the pit may impact the pit chemistry and the treatability of that pit water with the existing BIM food remedy. On-site reuse material. We've heard the concerns about the use of gray material throughout the BIPSU corridor. We want to be clear that the use of this material is safe, and if it were not, the CD would not allow for it. The BIPSU remedy is protective of human health and the environment. EPA recently issued their position on how this material can be managed within the corridors and where it can be placed. I'm going to discuss what we know about the on-site material at Buffalo Gulch and Diggins East. Those are the only 2 locations where this is being considered, and how EPA's placement conditions impact that potential reuse. Hopefully it'll provide you and the community more clarity on this issue. This is a table that I developed that includes the waste identification criteria from the further remedial scope of work, table 1, that are the waste limits. And it also includes data, real data from both Buffalo Gulch and Diggins East of what the concentrations are in the potentially eligible on-site reuse material. So what you can see for Buffalo Gulch, let me back up a little bit. To be considered waste, to be considered waste according to the freeze-ow. 3 of those constituents, arsenic, cadmium, copper, lead, mercury, or zinc, have to exceed the values in the waste identification criteria table. You can see for Buffalo Gulch that 1 constituent, zinc, does exceed it, but there are not 3 constituents that exceed those threshold values. Alternatively, if 1 single analyte was over 5,000 milligrams per kilogram, it'd automatically be considered waste. There are no constituents within Buffalo Gulch that exceed 5,000 milligrams per kilogram. For Diggins East, you apply the same rationale from Table 1. You can see that 4 of the constituents are below the single analyte thresholds, but you can see that 2 are above, both lead and zinc. But there are not 3 that exceed those contaminant concentrations, and there is not 1 single analyte that exceeds 5,000 milligrams per kilogram, so it's not waste. To be considered eligible for on-site reuse, and this is directly from the freeze-ow, if on-site materials do not exceed the waste identification criteria in Table 1 of Appendix 1, those values in that waste ID column, the material may be used on-site as general fill, provided it meets all other requirements for general fill of Table 2 of Appendix 1, e.g., for example, texture and pH. From a metals perspective, those materials are eligible for reuse. Additionally, they would have to meet the soil properties included in Table 2 for general soil properties. Shown on the right, that's an additional constraint. The EPA recently issued their position paper that provided additional guidance on where the materials could be placed on site if they passed the metals criteria and if they passed these soils properties. So any material that would be placed on site would be effectively out of surface water. We cannot place those materials within the basins in contact with water, and we have to place those materials, they would have to be placed outside of any 100-year floodplain, channel, or stream, outside of Restore Creek Coalition's designated channel alignment that goes past Northside Tailings and Diggins East, outside of all riparian areas, outside of the basin inlets, and outside of the outlet structures. Additionally, the material can only be placed above the 3-year groundwater high. And that's simply to be consistent with what I believe the excavation requirements are on each site. So above groundwater measured over the last 3 years. It has to be within a demonstrated capture zone of a groundwater capture system. We take that to mean that it has to be within the capture zone of the existing groundwater remedy, the BIPSU subdrain, or within a demonstrated capture zone of the additional hydraulic controls that we'll construct. And finally, any use of this material would have to occur below 18 inches of cover. Beyond this, we're going to make sure that we don't impact plant health. Some of this material has those high concentrations of zinc that we just saw in that last table. We need to place the materials and manage the materials in a way that won't impact plant health. These constraints, they will ensure that use of on-site material within the remedy is protective of human health and the environment. It will be safe to go play in these parks, and it will be safe for the fish in this stream. Quick update on RDRA progress. Thank you. These are the 13 projects that make up the Silverbow Creek Conservation Area, all the work down in the corridor by the stream. You can see on the bottom that Lexington Wetlands and Casey Street Waterline, they're both advanced to 100% design status. Lexington Wetlands is being constructed now. We're making good progress this fall. We'll need to come back in the spring and finish that work. Casey Street Waterline, we're looking to begin that work in April of next year after the frost is in the ground. We have to replace some water line and provide new services to some of the community members because of the work we're doing. Grove Gulch is this close to getting going. We're very close to getting Grove Gulch going. What's more important on here, I think, right now, and more pertinent to the conversation tonight, is the haul road and conveyor and the repository. You see them up at the top, and I just entered a number because we have made modest progress on each one, and my team is in town today looking at that haul road and conveyor now alignment. We need those projects to be completed as as soon as we can so they enable the other work. We can't take waste out of the project areas until we get through the repository siting study and select the appropriate place to dispose of this waste. And we can't get waste out of the project areas until we get that conveyor here and get it constructed. And the rest of the projects are at intermittent stages of the design progress. 30 represents 30% complete, so we still got a ways to go. 60% represents an intermediate design. It's much closer to being completed, but we still have some work to go to get it to 95% and 100% to be constructible. I like to summarize the requirements of the CD, of the settling defendants, with these 4 talking points. Atlantic Richfield will come in and we're going to design this remedy in a way that's protective of human health and the environment, and we're going to construct it. All the design work that we're doing needs to be approved by the EPA in consultation with DEQ. After we get done constructing the remedy, we're required to optimize its performance, right? So if we're seeing water come through the basins and it's not removing those sediments quite as well as we thought it would, we have to adjust how we operate that system. If we're not collecting as much groundwater as we thought we would with our groundwater control systems, we're still required to optimize it to see how we can improve it. After we're done with the operational and functional period, we'll be here to operate, maintain, and monitor the performance of that remedy. And the last point is the one that I think is forgotten about sometimes. If the remedy doesn't work, if the remedy fails, we are required, Atlantic Richfield is required to do additional work. We have to stay here and we have to fix it. We have to stay here and we have to fix it. We don't want to come back in and tear this project area up by any means. We don't want to do that in 5 years, 10 years, or 30 years. We want to do it right and do it right the first time. And when we're done, the remedy will be protective of human health and the environment. I'm a member of this community. Most of my team are members of this community that work with me, the engineers, the contractors, the staff with me up at the office at the Kelly, members of this community. We want to deliver a successful remedy. When we go walk those trails here in a few years, we'll all be proud of what we accomplished, and we'll all be able to move forward with Butte Priority Soils. Just a plug, sorry, thank you for your time tonight. I hope it was informative, and again, we want to do this more often. We'd like to come back in the spring to give you an update on not only the repository siting study and what progress we've made there, but also the conveyor and of course the design elements too. So please visit bipsu.com. There's really valuable information on there regarding the projects, information about the required work, and information about the land use. And also, I just want to make sure that you're all aware that we're hosting an open house, and the community is aware too, up at Montana Tech tomorrow at the Copper Lounge from 5 to 8. And we'll have more information there, including information like what I presented on the repository and haul roads, the conveyor, and all the project areas where we'll have our engineers available to discuss that with you. So please feel free to come and visit with us tomorrow night. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bryson. Do commissioners have any questions of Mr. Bryson? Commissioner Sorge.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. Josh, thank you very much. There's been a lot of work done, and I'm sure there's still a lot of questions. And you pretty much, covered most of my questions. But the big one was, how often will the remedy be reviewed to make sure that it is working?
Commissioner Sorge, Mr. Bryson.
Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner Sorge. The EPA reviews the remedy and its success every 5 years. That's not to mean that there's no review and monitoring going on in between. We're required to complete surface water monitoring in accordance with the Surface Water Management Plan. We're required to complete groundwater monitoring in accordance with the Groundwater Management Plan. Similar to what occurs on the Butte Hill today with the Butte Reclamation Evaluation System, where they go out and monitor those caps, check on vegetation, check for erosion, things like that. We'll need a similar system, but applied to riparian systems in the corridor. So there will be a mechanism in inspecting vegetation and erosion. So we'll have our annual requirements for monitoring, but the EPA completes the 5-year review of the remedy performance.
Thank you, Josh.
Thank you. Any other questions? Commissioner Callahan.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. Thank you, Josh. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate all the hard work and your dedication to our community. You had mentioned Hall and crossing roads, and I understand Harrison Avenue, we got to get across over to the MR property. But you had also mentioned Front Street. I'm confused on the Front Street side.
Yeah. So
Commissioner Callahan, Mr. Bryson, you're good.
Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner Callahan. Yes, Front Street, in particular East Front Street, could be avoided by use of a conveyor completely from, was it Utah Avenue, actually probably from Triple S Hardware Main Street easterly all the way to Harrison Avenue where it curls down below the railroad bridge and goes to the Civic Center. Could be avoided. Now, there are other streets from their other project sites where we still need to get waste from the project areas to the conveyor, which may incur trucks being on roads. But Front Street, the majority of it, East Front, and then also the bend front where it turns into Harrison Avenue, down in front of the Civic Center, could be avoided. The conveyor alignment, we anticipate will go right under Harrison Avenue through the pedestrian tunnel, and then come back over at the Civic Center. We'll see if that's accomplishable with my engineering team. Thank you.
Thank you. Follow-up, Commissioner Callahan.
One more question. The whole purpose of doing this is to move the dirty dirt. Well, in construction language, conveyors is the dirtiest way to move dirt. What are the odds the EPA will approve that?
Commissioner Callahan, Mr. Bryson.
Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner Callahan, Mr. Dan Callahan. We work with EPA on our projects all the time, right? They have the purview as the EPA, the regulating agency, to regulate. You know, we feel that conveyors are a conventional tool used to move materials everywhere, whether it be on mines or in industrial facilities, and it can be done safely, and it can, in my view, be done cleanly. Most of the concerns I hear about are related to dust generation. We'll need to monitor the moisture content in those soils when they're removed, and if they're too dry, we might have to wet it down. Now, we don't want those materials to be too wet because you don't want it dripping off or dripping through, right? So we'll have to monitor the moisture content in the soils to prevent dust and to prevent drip. We'll also have to maintain access along the entire conveyor alignment so we can do routine, daily, nightly inspection and maintenance of that conveyor. So is the conveyor working? Is it staying in good form? Is it functional? And also to address some of the things that you may be speaking of, as any material came off the side. You need to go down there and clean it up because we don't want the material to be hit with a rainstorm and wash into a stream. So it's going to be a labor-intensive effort.
Thank you, Mr. Bryson. Commissioner Sorge.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. One more question for Josh. You know, I know there has been a lot of talk about inland use, about, you know, the repository. If you should happen to select up north or wherever, what do you foresee that to look like? And how important was it that you really, you know, that to ARCO that you do something that's to make it look decent?
Commissioner Sorge, Mr. Bryson.
Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner Sorge. That's a good question, and it's something I didn't state very clearly when I was talking about use of the Berkeley pit and the fact that we would still need a repository location. The amount of material that we need to put in a repository will be dictated by our ability to put waste in the Berkeley pit. There will be a balance of material that will need to go somewhere. We won't know exactly how much space we need to have to dispose or repose of that material that can't go in the pit until we get truly done with that evaluation of the pit. We won't need as much room as we've said before. So of that 60 acres that I showed of the Kelly Mine area, initially we only thought we would need like half of it or maybe a little better of that to do it, right? It's all contingent upon what we can put in the Berkeley pit. Now, if it's a very small quantity, there is marginal remaining capacity in the Butte Mine Waste Repository. It's important that we keep that capacity available for our ongoing programs for the residential metals abatement program and also the dirt moving and excavation ordinance. So if somebody goes and develops a property, they find mine waste, they can take it up there. We don't want to encumber that capacity and be back in the same position we are in today, citing a new repository. So the best I can tell you today is that we're going to need a repository, and where that repository is located, we'll be very conscientious of community feedback. and of the position of Butte-Silver and where it could go. I think in the past we've done a good job with some of our reclamation projects. Case in point would be Foreman's Park and what it looks like today.
Thank you, Mr. Bryson.
Thank you, Mr.
Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. Thank you, Mr. Bryson, for being here. In your presentation, you did talk about, obviously, Dublin Gulch. That's been a hot topic tonight. You said that you will, if it came down to it, you will avoid Dublin Gulch. What assurances do we have, do the members of the public have, that you are going to avoid Dublin Gulch?
Yeah.
Commissioner Thatcher, Mr. Bryson.
Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner Thatcher, thank you for the question. We will avoid Dublin Gulch. I guess the only assurance I can give you is that the design will have to be proposed to the EPA, and they do consider community feedback, and it is a requirement to adhere to the National Historic Preservation Act, right? We hired a consultant, Mitzi, to go out there and identify these cultural resources, and she did just that. And the polygon within that lower Kelly Mine Area A is very clear. It's got a high density of cultural resources. The first mitigation, or first control, when you are dealing with significant resources like that, is avoidance. Avoidance. It is our full intent to avoid placement of materials over that Dublin Gulch area, if we were to go up there for a repository.
Thank you, Mr. Bryson. Follow-up, Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you for that, Mr. Bryson. Next question I think I have is the use of haul trucks. Damage to the roads. I mean, what happens if a haul truck, does that become your liability if the roads are damaged?
Commissioner Thatcher, Mr. Bryson.
Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner Thatcher. We would propose to use street legal haul trucks, which are rated by weight for use on all public right-of-ways. So those trucks would weigh, no more than a semi-truck going through town. And if those roads were designed per standard required for those roadways, then there would not be any damage. We do understand and appreciate that there could be localized damage if we drive up from the Buffalo Gulch project site onto Lexington Avenue or Cobb Avenue, for example. We would anticipate that there would be damage to maybe the edge of the road, and we will fully take that into account, and we will repair that.
Thank you, Mr. Bryson. Follow-up, Commissioner Thatcher, and then we'll go to
Thank you, Chief
Commissioner
Executive
Fisher.
Gallagher. I think this is my last one, and it's a little bit more personal, but do you have children?
Commissioner Thatcher, Mr. Bryson.
Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner Thatcher, I do have children. My wife and I moved here from Bozeman, 20 years ago in December, this coming December. And I'm looking forward, I talk to them about this project all the time, and I look forward to the day when I can take them down there to the Silver Bow Creek Conservation Area and say we got it done.
Commissioner Thatcher, follow-up.
So you would say, bar none, with all your heart, you would feel comfortable with your children, your grandchildren, playing in these parks, being in these areas. You would feel 100% comfortable with them being in these areas.
Commissioner Thatcher, Mr. Bryson.
Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner Thatcher, absolutely. I'm not going to design some, though, I wouldn't feel safe to take my kids or my grandkids to. I wouldn't do it for your kids, your grandkids, nobody in this room. That's our priority. Human health, protection of human health is our absolute priority.
Thank you, Mr. Bryson. Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. Thank you, Mr. Bryson. Appreciate you being here. Very informative information. As you are a messenger for ARCO BP, I am a messenger for the community. And I make remarks and in no way mean anything personal, but we talk a lot about a remedy. And we see remedies from 30 to 60%, some 100%. Well, we've been in this thing 30, 40 years. What's the remedy? I mean, I see, we're like Diggins East, we're 60% or 30%. I mean, we all see a lot about remedy, and the thing is, by the time we find the remedy, we're into a new era. I mean, and the remedy that we used even on the north side of town, a lot of that remedy didn't work. It did fail. And you said if it fails, they'll have to go back and do it, and you want to do it right the first time. Well, I'm a little concerned about the remedy when we don't know what the remedy is. So, I mean, I'm not asking questions, I'm just gonna make a few comments here if the chief executive will allow me to. Thank you,
You're
Chief
good.
Executive. Thank you, Mr. Bryson. So, we talked a lot about the remedy. We talked about hydraulic controls. What are hydraulic controls? I mean, is that like the sub-drain that's over there on Texas Avenue?
Commissioner Fisher, are you asking for a question now because you said you're going to do comments? Okay. Commissioner Fisher, Mr. Bryson.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. Thank you, Commissioner Fisher. The hydraulic controls are meant to capture groundwater similar to how the BIPSU subdrain between Texas Avenue, the Civic Center, and the Visitor Center does now. Now, these hydraulic controls may be of different technology, they may be of similar technology, they're not completely designed yet. But what those systems are the groundwater systems are meant to do is protect surface water quality in Blacktail and Silverboat Creeks. From the data I showed you today, you can see that those trend lines for dissolved copper concentrations are below the standard. That is our line of evidence to say that they are working. And we will expand them as a requirement of the remedy. What the remedy says we need to do today, it's defined in the 2020 Record of Decision Amendment. If you want to find the remedy, please go to that document and read it. We're required to expand those hydraulic controls to protect the work that's done at Blacktail Creek by the state of Montana, to protect the work that we do at Butte Reduction Works, and to continue to protect the areas upstream of that where our existing BIPSU subdrain is now.
Thank you, Mr. Bryson. Follow-up, Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chief Executive. Thank you once again, Mr. Bryson. Well, many of us feel like the subdrain or hydraulic controls over on Texas Avenue, they have to be pumped at least 3 or 4 times a year because in heavy rain, they don't work. So I'm hoping a new design will make them more beneficial so that we don't have to pump in perpetuity. That's just a comment. I'll go on to my next one. And that has to do with the subdrains too. So when you talk about like Diggins East, and the big thing is lead, 1,631 versus it's supposed to be 1,000. Well, lead is a major, major problem. I mean, lead should be 0. And let's face it, it's in the soil. It's not coming from painted houses and stuff in Butte, which was a big thing years ago. They said, oh no, that ain't the problem. We're testing kids and everything. Well, when you're having 1,631 and it's 1,000, they want us to accept 1,200 parts per million, whatever it is now. I'm not very good at that stuff, but that seems to be way out of line to me that, we should do that. And I don't know whether anyone knows or whether ARCO BP or the EPA, right there where you're talking about the black berm, there was a manganese plant there years ago when I was a kid. They blew up that plant and all that stuff laid on the ground. They never did remove it. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that I know and people in Butte know that ARCO BP and the EPA don't know because they failed to listen to the community. And that's why I'm the messenger for the community and you're the messenger for ARCO BP. So, I mean, these are just a couple comments I made. And the other question I did have is, you said something about trucks and going up the hill. This is up in Butte. A lot of people call it downtown, but we call it uptown here in Butte. That's downtown. So, I mean, if you're planning on hauling dirt uphill, that indicates to me somehow that's going to be up in these people's neighborhood if you're going uphill. I mean, am I correct?
Commissioner Fisher, Mr. Bryson.
Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner Fisher, I think you had 3 questions. The first was related to Diggins East and the contaminant concentrations of lead. Diggins East is an interesting site because it's also an unconsolidated landfill that was unpermitted for use, but people did dispose of construction debris, trash and refuse, and everything else in that location. So I would not anticipate that the lead concentrations in that area would not be impacted by those materials. Now we're required by the remedy, we've agreed to go in and screen that construction debris out, that trash out, and take that material to the landfill. So with that activity, we hope that a lot of those potential lead sources will be removed. Now what'll be left over are those soils, right? We'll need to screen those soils and consider what the contaminant concentrations are remaining prior to making any decision on how those materials could be reused. I think I already forgot one of your questions, but. related to taking material up the Butte Hill, uptown, I call it uptown, I call it up the hill. That assumes that we'll be able to dispose of material either at the Berkeley pit or at a repository up around the Berkeley pit, whether that be at the Kelly Mine area or somewhere between the Kelly Mine area and the Butte Mine Waste Repository. We don't know. We're still in the repository siting study process. No decision's been made on where.
Thank you, Mr. Bryson. Commissioner Reardon. Okay.
Thanks, Chief Executive Geller. Mr. Bryson, thanks for being here. You got some strong skin, some thick skin here, so we'll work you over a little bit more. I represent the district down by the Chamber of Commerce and that, and you know, that's been a long time coming. And basically, I think your presentation and all that has helped out a lot and all that. I have to hop on the train with Commissioner Fisher. We have this chart and all that stuff, but basically of these chemicals, and if we can use this, and then we're going to shake it around, and then we're going to get rid of this. I mean, we're talking about an enormous amount of dirt to be placed or used and all that. Number one, correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, lead's probably present, you know, the richest hill on earth and all that, but a number of these byproducts, say cadmium and all that, are a result of the process of mining, correct? Would you be?
Commissioner Reardon, Mr. Bryson.
Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner Reardon, I believe your question was related to both lead and the additional constituents of concern in Butte priority soils. The concentration of lead that I showed on the table was approximately, I think, over 1,600 parts per million. That exceeds the current standard in Butte. And as we all know, EPA is evaluating new standards at this time. I don't manage our residential program, so beyond that, I'm not going to speak to it too much. Right. We appreciate that the concentration is high from a human health perspective. What I omitted in my response to Commissioner Fisher is that all these materials will be placed below at least 18 inches of very clean soil that is protective of both human health and the environment. As far as cadmium goes, or the other constituents, I'm not a geochemist, I'm not a mineralogist, so as far as byproducts and production of other metals that were not initially native to here, I don't understand that process. What I know is that if they're on the sites, and if there's a concentration associated with them from the BIPSU consent decree, or the further remedial element scope of work that tell me what I have to do with them, then that's what I'm going to do with them.
Thank you, Mr. Bryson. Follow up, Commissioner Reardon.
Thanks, you, Executive Gallagher. I guess where I'm getting at is, you know, we discussed the pair tailings that were done. Great job, and there's some progress being made and all that. But this was a little bit before my time, but when my family came here and all that, there was, I believe, 17 to 19 mills throughout Butte-Silver County and all that. And we seen the damage that basically the pair tailings had caused, and you being a hydrologist and all that. Basically, my question to you, I guess, have these areas that these smelters were located, have they been plotted and tested for these chemicals and the water quality that you're working with to build these catch basins and stuff like that?
Commissioner Reardon, Mr. Bryson.
Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner Reardon, thank you for the question. The remedy that's included in the Butte Priority Soils Record of Decision Amendment from 2020 and contained within the consent decree covers all of Butte Priority Soils. The residential component of that is still covered under UAO, but the environmental concerns and human health concerns are all covered within either the content of the consent decree and where those wastes were produced or where they may be now. So in the case of the corridor where I do most of my work, there were facilities down there, right? The Parrot facility was at where the Parrot project was completed by the Natural Resource Damage Program. They did a great job. There was the Colorado smelter down at Butte Reduction Works. We know that, and we're required to remediate that. Commissioner Fisher mentioned the manganese facility there by the Blacktail berm. That's a component within the boundaries of the work. So, to my knowledge, yes, we are remediating what those source areas would have been, and we're taking care of the contaminants that are in place on those sites.
Thank you, Mr. Bryson. Commissioner Sorge, you have a question?
I do. Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. It's getting late, so I'm not going to get into it too much. Josh, just one more for you. Where there's talk about bringing the clean soil in, what's in the clean soil? What kind of metals and what's in the clean soil that you're going to be replacing it with?
Commissioner Sorge, Mr. Bryson.
Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner Sorich, thank you for the question. Our borrow area is located out by the drive-in theater, out by Silver Bow exit. We call it the Houlihan. We've traditionally used it for backfill materials here in town, quite often for remediation projects. Before we bring that material into town and put it on the project sites, it is required to be tested for those same metals constituents to ensure that it meets the table requirements that are included in the CD. So it will be tested at a frequency determined by EPA to tell us what those metal contaminants are in that soil before we can even place it. We've had good luck with that material as far as metals contaminants. We've also produced material west of Montana Tech at what we call the Butte Rock Quarry. We use that for construction aggregates. Our contractor has been transporting that down closer to the interstate so we don't have to haul it through town. We're taking it out on the interstate. That material, same story. It's mostly rock. That material tests clean for metals as well, and we're able to reuse it on site. As far as topsoil goes, we've attained the majority of the topsoil so far that I've been hoarding away for this project from the Gallatin Valley, from development projects where they consider it actually a waste or a byproduct. So we take that good rich topsoil from the Gallatin Valley, we bring it over here, and it tests clean for those metals as well.
Thank you, Mr. Bryson. Commissioner Frederickson.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. Thank you, Mr. Bryson. Great presentation, and encourage you guys to come back often to give us updates. I have two questions. First question is, when you were presenting the design, the end-use design for the consent decree to us, it was parks and trails and an amphitheater. My first question is that design still the design that you're looking at when this is complete? Because I don't remember seeing an amphitheater. Not that the amphitheater is my highest priority on this, but I don't remember seeing it in your presentation. And I actually have one from back here on the consent decree that has it on there. So I'm just wondering if the design has changed, and if so, what else has changed?
Commissioner Frederickson, Mr. Bryson.
Thank you, Commissioner. Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner Frederickson. Yes, the inland use design is substantially changed, or substantially the same, I'm sorry. We have all those same amenities, one for one, located in the designs right now. Now we've adjusted some of the architecture. We had curvilinear architecture in some of our designs, and we got a little bit of community feedback on that architecture, and now it's more reminiscent of what you would see in a mining town, right? Very clean lines. I think it looks fantastic, and come see some of those designs tomorrow. We still have all the landscaping. All the landscaping is still in place, all the trees. We still have all the nice landscape grading, the use of rock to utilize as retaining walls and provide some topography. And we still have the playgrounds located in the areas too, in addition to the wayfinding features that you'd find in park. Interpretation, education, all those features are still there. Now, we're going to work hand in hand with Butte-Silver to deliver what the community wants, right? So we anticipate we know what that is, but not at all times. So we'll work hand in hand with Butte-Silver to deliver what we committed to but also make sure it's not inconsistent with the desires of the community.
Thank you, Mr. Bryson. He got it? Okay.
He covered it.
Okay. Sorry. Commissioner Frederickson, you had another question?
I just have a follow-up. And this is kind of related to Commissioner Callahan's comment regarding crossing Harrison Avenue and Front Street. I've always had a real concern on Montana Street, and so I'm wondering if you've come to we have a difficult connection from pedestrians getting from the walking to across Montana Street, and I'd always like to see a pedestrian bridge go across Montana Street, and so I'm just wondering how you're going to get waste across Montana Street, and then if you'll consider pedestrians connecting all the trails that you're going to have.
Commissioner Frederickson, Mr. Bryson.
Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner Frederickson, thanks for the question. First to the waste and getting across Montana Street. part of the challenge to our engineers is to consider that. Is it feasible to get a conveyor across Montana Street in consideration of the infrastructure that's packed in there? So when you're driving past the entry to the Butte Reduction Work site by the Slag Canyon walls, you'll notice that there's a train bridge in a stream to your right, I think 2 overhead power lines right by Montana Street, and you have to make some pretty quick directional changes. Now, that at best will be extremely difficult, but our design team is looking at that possibility. As far as a pedestrian bridge over Montana Street, that is not in the land use plan that we've presented to the community.
Thank you, Mr. Bryson. Any other questions of commissioners? Commissioner O'Neill.
Thank you, Chief Executive. Thank you, Mr. Bryson, for the presentation. So the real holdup here, right, to move forward, it would be definitely, I mean, repository site, and then I guess 2 questions, and then I mean, I'll be honest with you, say it publicly, the not using trucks and with the conveyor, it kind of freaks me out. I can't physically put that in my brain to see how that works, but thankfully you guys have some smart people that are looking at that. But how are they looking at the conveyor belt and truck thing if there was really no place yet? I guess that'd be my first question.
Commissioner O'Neill. Mr. Bryson.
Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner O'Neill, thanks for the question. We took the feedback from as far back as Timber Butte and throughout the repository site and studied that the community wanted these materials up at the mine. Now, we don't have an exact location defined at the mine today. We don't know how much we'll be able to put in the Berkeley pit. We don't know how much leftover there'll be or where that material will need to go. But we do feel that locations above the Kelly mine, above Dublin Gulch, moving to the east, past Bell Diamond and towards the Butte Mine Waste Repository would be suitable locations for a repository. We need to get through the process, complete the process with the Repository Site and Study Committee, get the recommendation from the Repository Site and Study Committee, take that into account with what we'll provide the EPA in what will be the final report of that entire effort.
Thank you, Mr. Bryson. Follow-up, Commissioner O'Neill.
Thank you, Chief Executive. Thank you, Mr. Bryson. So let's say that the repository is able to go and not do anything to Dublin Gulch. Let's just say go around the area like you kind of proposed there. So talk about the amenities. I don't believe that was any amenities were proposed in doing something like that. Is that something that area would be able to basically get out of that if something goes up there in that area? Would we be able to get some nice buildings, parks, water slide park? Well, you know what I mean, just.
Commissioner O'Neill. Mr. Bryson.
Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner O'Neill. I'm doubtful on water slides. If we were to utilize that location that's immediately adjacent to Foreman's Park, adjacent to communities, I think it would present an opportunity to provide additional and improved interpretation and education opportunities. The site would be reclaimed with grass, and it would be healthy for access. What that looks like and what Butte-Silver desires in land use, I assume would be consistent with that. We were being patient with the repository site and study to not force the issue by offering something without having acceptance of a location yet. So we're being patient as we stack the pieces together, as we're considering the Berkeley pit, as we're considering where the balance of waste may need to go before we start flashing pictures in front of people of what could be done.
Thank you, Mr. Bryson. Follow-up, Commissioner O'Neill.
This is my last one for this one. Thank you, Chief Executive. Thank you, Mr. Bryson. Can you tell me how many available spots currently we have? How many options do we have for repository? You may have said that, but would you please?
Commissioner O'Neill, Mr. Bryson.
Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner O'Neill. Right now, with consideration of the Berkeley pit being a potential disposal location, I would consider that one. There is the Kelly mine area that we discussed at our June update meeting that we presented to Centerville. I consider that two. I consider portions of the waste being potentially able to go at the Butte Waste Repository without compromising its remaining capacity to support ongoing activities would be 3. And I think we would need to consider the areas in between the Kelly Mine area to the Butte Mine Waste Repository, which are effectively in that figure that I already showed you. So there's a substantial area on the northern edge of the pit between the Kelly Mine area and the existing Butte Mine Waste Repository that I think would certainly have capacity to dispose of the balance of materials that we would be able to dispose in the pit if we're able to do so.
Thank you, Mr. Bryson. Follow-up, Commissioner O'Neill.
I didn't mean to. Thank you, Chief Executive. Thank you, Mr. Bryson. So in them 4 ones that you mentioned, does that affect Dublin Gulch?
Commissioner O'Neill, Mr. Bryson.
Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner O'Neill. If we're able to utilize the Berkeley pit, we'll be able to put a substantial amount of waste material in that area. Now, I said we wouldn't be able to put all the material in that area. We don't know what that remaining quantity is. So the balance of that material will determine how much space we need for a repository. There's more than enough room in all those areas to dispose or repose that waste in a safe manner. Where it would go between Dublin Gulch and the Butte Mine Waste Repository, don't know because we don't know the quantity yet. But we are committed to avoiding Dublin Gulch as shown on that figure that I already showed, regardless of the quantity, regardless of where it goes.
Thank you, Mr. Bryson. Any other questions of commissioners? Seeing none. Mr. Bryson, thank you for being with us tonight and sharing that. There is a meeting tomorrow, or a public presentation or display for the community up at the Copper Lounge on Montana Tech's campus. So, all right, moving on. Next, we'll move on to Section 2 consent agenda A 1 through 4 and B 1 through, gotta look, see how many we've got on there, 1 through 20. Do we have any friendly amendments and or segregations? Commissioner Fisher. That's item number 6, communication number 2023-535.
That is correct. Thank you.
Are there any other segregations? Seeing none, Commissioner Frederickson.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. I move to approve Section 2 of the consent agenda A 1 through 4 and B 1 through 20 with the exception of 6, communication number 2023-535.
We have a motion and a second to approve tonight's consent agenda. Is there anything on the question? Could commissioners please vote? And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
10 yea, 0 nay.
10 yea, 0 nay, motion passes. Moving on to item number 6, communication number 2023-535, John Moudry, Community Enrichment Director, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization to have Chief Executive Gallagher sign required signatures in reference to the Memorandum of Understanding with MPS Intelligent Infrastructure for a trial of MPS platform for lots and garages and solar safety stick remote enforcement parking platform for a 45-day collection period. Do we have Mr. Moudry come up here? Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. The reason I segregated this is it's a 45-day trial period, but I mean, I'd like to know a little more about it, how it's going to work. And the other thing I'd like to know is, if we do decide to take it, what's the cost or estimated cost going to be? And if we don't decide to take it, you know, it's just one of these things. I'm always a little beware of these people that 45-day trial or 90-day trial period and, you know, return it if you don't like it and stuff like that, because we see a lot of that around anymore. And I'm just not certain about this. I think it's a good idea, but I'm just not certain about this 45-day trial period. Then if you don't like it, they're just gonna leave and not collect no money. But, I mean, if we do take it, are we looking like 50, 100, 10? I don't have no idea, do you? Thank you.
Commissioner Fisher, Director Moudry, would you like to respond to that?
Chairman Gallagher, Commissioner Fisher. It does state 45-day trial. What it is a 45-day data collection using their two platforms, MPS's two platforms, to collect data both for our parking garage, on-street parking, and for our parking lot. All of those located on Park Street. The proposal came to us from MPS, and they are just as excited about it as I am for the data collection. And they want the data collection before they will present a proposal to Butte-Silver Bowl. So they are looking for information too. They want to run the 45-day trial. They'll come back with proposals to Butte-Silver Bowl, which may be anywhere from revenue sharing within our parking commission to, fully expense to Butte-Silver Bowl to install their two platforms. They do this nationwide, all over the country. They do it in a lot bigger municipalities than ours. But it is and if you read the two MOUs, there is no obligation from Butte-Silver Bowl. We will get the data. It is guaranteed to come to Butte-Silver Bowl, whatever they collect. Their system will run for 45 days. There will be no citations given while they're collecting this data. And then at the end of the 45 days, they will come back with a proposal to Butte-Silver Bowl for all of their systems.
Thank you, Mr. Moudry. Follow-up, Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. Thank you. I'll call you John. We're friends for a long time. I just, we've kind of been in, you understand the same thing. Yeah. It's always a little leery about these things. So as long as you're confident with it, I mean, I have no problem with it. But I just have a lot of concern about when you do these things, then come back and, they don't give you an estimate. Like if you do take it, I don't want to see them come back and have it something that's unaffordable to us. That's the only thing. So, I mean, thank you for your input. I appreciate that. So at this time, I would make a motion to concur and place on file communication 2023535. Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. I almost seconded it before you did that. Anything else on the question? Commissioner Callahan.
I got one more question for Mr. Moudry, please.
Commissioner Callahan.
Did you say the parking garage, the parking lot, and street parking?
Commissioner Callahan, Mr. Moudry.
That is correct. And they will put the safety stick portion of their platform is an on-street system. It's a camera system and a data collection system, and they will be able to monitor through the on-street. They will be able to monitor all our safety zones, crosswalks, any fire hydrants, and then on-street parking also, the turnover and on-street parking. I've gone through this process with two different contractors, and the one thing that I've learned about this is parking is not about parking. Parking is about flow within your business district of not how long somebody can park at that, it's how you get that traffic through your business district.
Follow-up, Commissioner Callahan.
So does this mean you're proposing on-street payment parking?
Commissioner Callahan, Mr. Moudry.
Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner Callahan. No, this is all just data collection. This will all go before the Parking Commission, and the Parking Commission is the one that will make the recommendations to whether or not, we revert back to paid parking, non-paid parking, whatever. But this is all just data collection.
Thank you, Mr. Moudry. Any other questions? So we have a motion and a second to concur and place on file communication number 2023-535. Is there anything on the question? Seeing none, could commissioners please vote? And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
10 yea, 0 nay.
10 yea, 0 nay, motion passes. Moving on to section 4, ordinances and resolutions introduced into judiciary. We have 4 of them, I believe. Okay. And do we have section 5 missing? I believe. I think we're missing. Okay, so we'll move on to section 6, ordinances and resolutions for final reading. We have 3 of them. So first one is Council Bill number 2023-09 and ordinance number 2023-09. Clerk, please read the caption.
An ordinance amending the South Butte Industrial Targeted Economic Development District, amending the South Butte Industrial Targeted Economic Development District, and amending the South Butte Industrial Targeted Economic Development District Plan with a tax increment financing program pursuant to Title 7, Chapter 15, Part 42 and 43 of the Montana Codes annotated and providing for an effective day herein.
Commissioner Frederickson.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. I move to place Council Bill number 2023-09, ordinance number 2023-09 on final reading and passed, having been deemed fully read at length.
We have a motion and a second placing Council Bill number 2023-09, ordinance number 2023-09 on final reading. Is there anything on the question? Could commissioners please vote? And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
10 yea, 0 nay.
10 yea, 0 nay, motion passes. Moving on to Council Bill, item number 2, Council Bill number 2023-10, ordinance number 2023-10. Clerk, please read the caption.
An ordinance establishing the Montana Connections Targeted Economic Development District, creating the Montana Connections Targeted Economic Development District, and adopting the Montana Connections Targeted Economic Development District Plan with a tax increment financing provision pursuant to Title 7, Chapter 15, Part 42 and 43 of the Montana Code annotated and providing an effective date herein.
Commissioner Frederickson.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. I move to place Council Bill number 2023-10, ordinance number 2023-10 on final reading and passed, having been deemed fully read at length.
We have a motion and a second placing Council Bill number 2023-10 and ordinance number 2023-10 on final reading. Is there anything on the question? Could commissioners please vote? And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
10 yea, 0 nay.
10 yea, 0 nay, motion passes. Moving on to item number 3, Council Bill number 2023-10, ordinance number 2023-11, and ordinance number 2023-11. Clerk, please read the caption.
An ordinance amending the Butte Uptown Urban Renewal Area, amending the Butte Uptown Urban Renewal District, and amending the Butte Uptown Urban Renewal District Plan with a tax increment financing program pursuant to Title 7, Chapter 15, Part 42 and 43 of the Montana Codes annotated and providing for an effective date herein.
Commissioner Frederickson.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. I move to place Council Bill number 2023-11, ordinance number 2023-11 on final reading and passed, having been deemed fully read at length.
We have a motion and a second placing Council Bill number 2023-11 and ordinance number 2023-11 on final reading. Is County Attorney Joyce.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. I'm not sure that these ordinances should be on final reading. I think they should only be on second reading. I think that Right, but I believe that the first time they were in judiciary was last week. So this should be second reading as opposed to
So
final reading, if you can amend those motions to pass them on second reading rather than final.
Okay, so let's move forward on this one right now that we just read, Council Bill number 2023-11 and ordinance number 2023-11, and let's ask for that to second reading. We have a motion and a second to move Council Bill number 2023-11 and ordinance number 2023-11 on second reading. Is there anything on the question? Commissioner Reardon.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. I just have a question here. I know how Mrs. Burns, how she checks things out, but after listening to the land that Butte-Silver has been deeded to them and all that, I would like to have a few more questions answered about what our liabilities are. And basically, it seems somewhat with this expansion, which we're all here for and all that, is it developable, you know, with the 18-inch cap, it sounds like, or what is its status as far as being available for development?
Okay.
I know she's gone, so
yeah,
I don't know if anybody,
yeah,
it's only second reading,
right.
so I just thought I'd put that out there,
Okay.
maybe we can discuss it.
Okay.
All right,
Sounds
thank
good.
you.
Commissioner Callahan.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. Yeah, I guess this question for the county attorney. So if there was a boundary change, when it goes back to judiciary, do we have to start over from scratch, or can judiciary go ahead and subtract some partials out of this, or what would be the process of that, please?
Commissioner Callahan, County Attorney Joyce.
Mr. Chief Executive, Commissioner Callahan, the Judiciary Committee can make amendments to the ordinance, so you could amend whatever provision you wanted to, and then it would have to go, obviously, to the full council for final.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, County Attorney Joyce. Okay, we have a motion and a second to move this to second reading. Is there anything on the question? I didn't think we had that. Could commissioners please vote? And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
10 yea, 0 nay.
10 yeas, 0 nay, motion passes. I think we'll move back to Council Bill number 2023-09 and ordinance number 2023-09. Commissioner Frederickson.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. I move to amend my previous motion and move to place Council Bill 2023-09, ordinance number 2023-09 on second reading and passed, having been deemed fully read at length.
We have a motion and a second placing Council Bill number 2023-09, ordinance number 2023-09 on second reading. Is there anything on the question? Could commissioners please vote? And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
10 yea, 0 nay.
10 yeas, 0 nay, motion passes. Moving back to item number 2, Council Bill number 2023-10, ordinance number 2023-10. Commissioner Frederickson.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. I'll also amend my previous motion, and I move to place Council Bill number 2023-10, ordinance number 2023-10 on second reading and passed, having been deemed fully read at length.
We have a motion and a second placing Council Bill number 2023-10, ordinance number 2023-10 on second reading. Could commissioners please vote? And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
10 yea, 0 nay.
10 yeas, 0 nay, motion passes. Moving on to Section 7, resolutions and ordinances for the suspension of the rules for final passage. Commissioner Frederickson.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. So I guess I'll move for the suspension of the rules. I move for the suspension of the rules for the purpose of passing resolution number 2023-60 by waiving subsection 7 of Rule 36 of the Rules and Order of Business of the Council of Commissioners, thereby having it considered for advanced passage without reference to the Judiciary Committee.
So we don't have a second. So seeing no second, the suspension of the rules dies. Am I correct? County Attorney Joyce?
Yes. It would die. And then I guess you'd have to make a different recommendation to refer it either to the Committee of the Whole acting as the judiciary, or just to the Judiciary Committee. And just, I guess, to answer the question of why it was put on the agenda like this, it was mainly based on the input from Commissioner Fisher earlier, that he wanted the full council to be able to consider this resolution. And so this was a way for all 12 of you to discuss it tonight, or I guess however many are here, to discuss it tonight. And you wouldn't have to, pass it tonight, but it would be an opportunity for all of the commissioners to be able to weigh in on the resolution and take whatever action you felt was necessary tonight. And one of those actions could have been to refer it to a different committee, but that was the basis for having it placed on, so that all 12 of you could discuss it instead of referring it, as your rules require, to the Judiciary Committee, where there'd only be 6 of you to discuss it. And you can wait and discuss it next week at a Judiciary Committee with 6, or you could make a motion to refer it to the Committee of the Whole acting as judiciary, where all 12 of you can discuss it next week. It was just a effort to, since this has been on the agenda for numerous weeks and a lot of people have showed up in an effort to have it considered in resolution form for all of the commissioners to be able to go ahead and discuss it. But apparently that's not what you would like to do.
Thank you, County Attorney Joyce. Commissioner Frederickson?
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher, and thank you, County Attorney Joyce. Yes, you and I had discussed this when this was going on to the agenda, and this was the recommendation from County Attorney Joyce in order to get us on to have this discussion. So that's why it was kind of a different scenario in suspending the rules. But so I guess I'll in the effort to I'll make a motion to refer this to the Judiciary Committee.
Commissioner Fisher, and then Commissioner Callahan.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher.
Do I wait for a second though before questions? Yeah. Do we have a second? Oh, well, let's see if there's a second first, and then we can do a substitute motion. Yeah. Is there a second?
Go for 2.
Seeing none, I think Commissioner Shea would like to do a substitute motion, and then we'll go to see if.
I would make a substitute motion to send this to the Committee of the Whole sitting as the Judiciary.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to send this to the Committee of the Whole and sitting as the Judiciary. Now, Commissioner Callahan.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. I guess this question is for the County Attorney. Joyce, can we take action tonight?
Commissioner Callahan, County Attorney Joyce.
Mr. Chief Executive, Commissioner Callahan, not based on the fact that you have decided not to consider it tonight. If Commissioner Frederickson's motion to suspend the rules to be able to discuss it tonight, you could have taken action, but since that failed, or for lack of a second, no, you can't do anything unless there's a motion to reconsider his motion.
Could I second it now? I think we've already made too many motions, haven't we?
I think there's one motion left that could happen, because we've had two on this when we're,
Mr. or Chief Executive, so there is a substitute motion on the table. I don't think that you could have a motion to end all motions that is the same as
okay,
a first motion.
okay.
But
So we have
if
a,
the substitute motion fails, then there probably could be.
okay, okay. So we have a motion on the floor to send it to the council, the committee of the whole, acting as the judiciary. Could commissioners please vote? I think we're missing, there we go. And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
4 yea, 6 nay.
4 yea, 6 nay, motion fails. So, moving back. Do we have?
You could make a motion to
reconsider. Yeah, okay.
Commissioner Frederickson's motion.
Okay. Commissioner Callahan.
I would like to make a motion to reconsider Commissioner Frederickson's original motion.
Okay. We have a motion to reconsider Commissioner Frederickson's previous motion for suspension of the rules. Could commissioners, Commissioner Fisher.
On the question.
Okay.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. I guess one of the questions is if we're going to kick this around tonight, I guess we better pack a lunch because we're going to be here for a while. But I think the best thing to do is to hold this and visit about it next week, because we're not making no headway here, and we're going to make the same vote and probably refer to judiciary. So it's just my recommendation to hold this in abeyance and see what happens next week. Thank you.
So there's a motion on the floor, and I don't think that the motion to hold in abeyance can be override the suspension of the rules. Is that correct?
I mean, the only action that you can take with the resolution is
Reconsider.
to refer it to the judiciary, refer it to the committee of the whole acting as judiciary, or take action tonight. And at the end of tonight, you could still make one of those recommendations. You know, you could hold it and it would go to the committee of the whole next week if no vote is decided tonight. But the only way to discuss it tonight is through the motion that is currently on the floor.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second to suspend the rules. So could commissioners please vote? Yes, this is to suspend the rules. And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
7 yea, 3 nay.
7 yea, 3 nay, motion passes. Moving to resolution number 2023-60. Clerk, please read the caption.
A resolution expressing the policy of the City County of Butte-Silver, Montana, BSB, relative to the commitments, communications, and public transparency of the Butte Priority Soils Operable Unit consent decree and providing for an effective date herein.
Commissioner Frederickson.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. I guess I will open it up to discussion, and I guess we can start with Commissioner Fisher.
Commissioner Fisher.
I'll likely make a motion.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. The reason that this is we just got this resolution from the county attorney today, and we've had no time to review it. On either side of us had no time to review it. And the thing is, as far as I looked into it, there's some errors in this resolution. One says that contaminated soil should read uncontaminated soil. That's an error in it. The other thing is as the resolution that we propose, we are the policy makers of the government, and we our policy was not written in the resolution as we proposed it. And I mean, if you want to take away the power of the commissioners and leave it all to the chief executive branch and the county attorney's branch, that's not what government's all about. You're supposed to take a resolution, write it from what we had in the proposal, and make it work from there. But right now, what we're doing is we're voting on a resolution that had very little comment or concern from anyone involved. And I would like to call on Evan Barrett for a minute to maybe finish his comments that he's going to make earlier today about what's going on here.
Commissioner Fisher, so are we gonna, you want to bring Evan Barrett up? Is that what you're asking for, or or you want discussion here with commissioners first? County Attorney Joyce, let me ask for a little guidance on this.
Well, Mr. Chief Executive, I guess, that's up to you and running the meeting.
Yeah.
I would like an opportunity, though, to respond to what our office did in regard to this resolution and to respond to the criticism that we overstepped and overreached and acted inappropriately, because you are the body that sets policy. And I would like to say that a policy is not the same as a concept, and a policy typically is a course of action proposed by a governed body. So we looked at the resolution that was proposed and put in statements that actually do set policy, that actually are a course of action that this governing body would take, and that included the information about how to open up meetings, the transparency language, and the language regarding the urban roads being used as a last resort, because those are actual policies and action items. The things that were deleted were ideas, and a lot of it were indications of certain people's opinions, and we are the legal advisors to this governing body, and when there is language in an ordinance that, or a proposed resolution that talks about independent science, and that can be interpreted in a different way, I think the comments that were included in the red line try to explain those, that rationale. Who decides what's independent science? My independent science could be different from another person in the public's independent science. And the indication that waste in place, that commitments to the public shall be driven by independently reviewed science. Again, whose independently reviewed science does that mean? And public input based on the concept that cleaner is better than waste in place. A concept is not policy. We are bound by our contractual obligation in signing the CD, and the remedy is going to drive what the cleanup is. So those were basically what we did with this resolution. We tried to have the whereases be factual and had them incorporated into the action items of now therefore. All the recitals were incorporated in that, and that included, the chief executive's letter to the EPA that addressed the topics of concern for the cleanup efforts, and we included, again, the policy on transporting the waste, and we included the ideas about what meetings of the settling defendants would be open to the public, and what technical documents would be available, how they would be available to the public, all of which are policy-driven statements. The things that are just opinions and or are not able to be quantified were not included in the resolution.
Thank you for that explanation, County Attorney Joyce. Follow-up, Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chief Executive. Thank you, County Attorney Joyce. So how do you explain in the second whereas where it says possibly leaving contaminated materials in place and it's supposed to read uncontaminated, which states right here in this document here. I mean, you can see there's errors in the resolution. How can we pass a resolution without amending it? I mean, I don't think you amend the resolution on the floor right now. These are supposed to be redlined as far as I know. I mean, there's errors in here and we should correct them. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying the resolution isn't good, but it's a good start. But every resolution should have an opportunity to be read, reviewed, and redlined. And that's what I'm asking for. But I mean, there's errors in here that we should be able to correct.
Commissioner Fisher, I think Commissioner O'Neill had a
Thank you, Chief Executive.
comment.
So I'm gonna go with the positive first. The positive thing about this resolution starting has been, it has captured a lot of our community and I guess in the positive way of, I feel like more communication has happened. And that's really good. I mean, it's the efforts of this resolution, I feel like, has kind of sparked some attention and got some stuff going forward. That's definitely a positive, what we want for the for us and the community. However, it's hard for me to pass this resolution when one of the Evan being one of the guys behind it, and then coming tonight and saying, hey, hold back. Let's and then I kind of compare it to this. Like, it reminds me of when I was going to college at Western. I've seen a lot of red when I got papers back from me, but it was on me. I made the mistakes, right? So if you guys are making these resolutions, maybe before they come here, and don't ask me because it'd be really red, but I don't know. I feel like this thing's been shoved down our throat and then now shoved down the county attorney's throat. And where's the responsibility on where? I mean, I've never sat in and talked with any of you guys about this resolution outside of the council. Not that we can. I'm just saying that, yeah, I know we can't, but I'm just saying this is, we don't look good here, just so you know, on this whole thing. I mean, there's other different ways to get this transparency thing, and it's acting as a team and not the way this is going. This is not going in the right direction. So thank you.
Any other? Commissioner Shea.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. Commissioner O'Neill brings up a great point that just the fact that this resolution came out has resulted in some change. We have Mr. Bryson up here, which we are very excited to hear from and hear the progress and hear all of the things from that side. We actually had the EPA Region 8 Administrator, Casey Becker, here. Now, it still remains to be seen why she was here and why she chose to meet with the certain people that she met with, and I still haven't gotten a straight answer on that. But she was here, and so that's a big deal. So I do think that this is opening up some avenues. We've already gotten a commitment from the EPA to allow, they're doing a pilot program from now till the end of the year as far as public involvement, which is really important. And in my mind, they are where the issue lies, is with the EPA kind of driving the bus for all of us. We're a local government. We require certain things regarding public participation and the public's right to know. And we can't just ignore that, and we can't just say, well, we just don't feel like that's right. I think it's still important for us to take a position that we do believe that public participation is important, that we do believe that cleaner is better, whatever that may mean. I know that's a subjective term. But I do think there has been some good things that have come out of this. Do I like what's in front of me? Not 100%, but do I hate it? No. So I think it's worth more conversation, but I definitely don't think it's ready to be passed as written tonight.
Commissioner Reardon.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. I think everybody around this table knows where I stand and in this room. And the thing about it is, I agree with Commissioner Shea and all that there wasn't much happening around here. And then all of a sudden we come up with this resolution. It was drafted by some legal people and also consulted by legal people besides the county attorney. When Commissioner O'Neill opened up his deal, he goes, I want to go on the positive side. You know, things are happening and all that. Yeah, maybe we're not looking very good because this has been a topic of discussion for quite a while. But I think we really got to realize that what we're here for is basically to serve the people we represent. And when we had all these people in this room tonight, basically they're here to tell you how they feel about this cleanup and what they want done. And I don't believe we would have had a crowd like this before if we didn't have this article. Let's call it an article. Let's not call it a resolution right now, for the people of Butte to express what they are expressing through us, that they do care what's going on, but they're pretty frustrated. And we've worked our way. We've kicked the can quite a ways down the road with the help of the executive branch, with the help of some people and all that. But you still got to remember that we represent these people. We don't represent ourselves. And the thing about it is I'm really excited with what's going on, the previous people that have worked on it. And we're not being facetious. Like Michelle Shea mentioned, the people that have been here. They're having another presentation tomorrow up at Montana Tech. We're going to have conveyor belts. So what is the matter with this resolution? We're not hurting anybody. We're not pointing out anything. We're just saying what the people want to do. And I guess what I'm saying too also is I'm sorry there might be some personal conflicts with this group. But the thing about it is we got to put all this aside and get this piece of paper where we still have some juice. And I like the juice that's coming. And it's with these people that are coming to us and telling us what they're going to do and what they're going to consider. So I think everybody around this table should reevaluate who we are and who we represent. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Reardon. Commissioner Thatcher, and then we'll come back to.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. You know, with all due respect, these people that we're representing are also our county employees that since the inception of this resolution, we've attacked, you know, whether that was the goal or not. You know, we've gone after the Reclamation Department. I'm just shooting it straight here. We've gone after the Reclamation Department. Tonight, we just went after the county attorney's office. I mean, we represent these people too. And so I think that needs to be taken into consideration. If your guys' goal, as I've said this a million times, if this group's goal was to get the attention, like we've all said tonight, of EPA, of NRDP, of ARCO, of everybody, we have done that. You guys did that successfully, and I applaud everyone that was involved in that. Kudos. But to take down the very people that we represent at the same time, I think is absolutely asinine. And then secondly, I said to Commissioner Reardon's point, what is the point of this now? I mean, where are we going forward with this? What can we get out of this is what I'm confused by. Whether it's well written, you guys agree with it or you don't agree with it, I don't see how this is an effective piece of policy because there is no outcome that we receive. I honestly don't understand. If somebody can point that out to me, I would gladly eat my words up here right now, but I honestly do not understand the point of this resolution. As it's written, as it was written early on in the early stages, that is my take on it. If I could deny this tonight, frankly, I probably would. So that is just my opinion. Thank you for my 2 cents.
Commissioner O'Neill, you have one.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. I guess where I'm going with this too is I feel like that we don't need a resolution or a letter or another document to stand up for going forward and do the right thing. We have a lot of great community support that wants to do the right thing. We have all the great staff here that wants to do the right thing. I think having the resolution and I don't think what it does, there's no power to it. The power is in us as commissioners, and that's just my opinion, so thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Sorge.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Chief Executive. You know, I'm going to piggyback on what Commissioner Thatcher is saying. I'm not sure what it's doing either. I'm not sure where we're headed with it. And it has done some positive, but there's also been some negatives with it. What is it going to do? I'm not sure. I'm not really sure. You know, we're setting policy for one department. You know, is that right for just one department? Should we be setting policy for all departments? I don't think so. You know, that's, I'm going to make a notion, we note and place on file.
We have a motion and a second to note and place on file. Commissioner Callahan.
I just want to still make one more comment. First of all, the comment that nothing was going on and there was no movement. There's a ton of going on and there's a ton of movement. You know, we've got Josh here from ARCO. We've got Mr. McGee Green here from the EPA. We've got Ms. Simonich from the DEQ. These people have been coming here for 3 months trying to help us resolve this problem. They're working their tails off. To sit there and say there's nothing going on is shameful. And like Ms. Thatcher just said, we've pounded on our own staff that are doing an incredible job. And to turn around and disrespect them and say they're doing this wrong and that wrong, we've got people saying they're going to quit if this thing goes through. They can't do their job. We've got to do our people right. We've got to do our community right. And this resolution isn't doing that. And now we got a motion on the floor. If nobody else has something to say, let's vote on it.
So a call for the vote. Okay, Commissioner Shea, we'll have one more comment and then we'll go on the vote.
So I just want to say that all of the language that we all found offensive regarding the staff was all taken out of the resolution. And setting policy is our job, whether it's for the community or for the executive branch. That's our job. So yes, we do set policy for the departments. We just set policy. We just approved the personnel policies. We set policy. It's what we do. So I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. There's some good stuff in here. Like I said before, do I like it all? No. But one thing I really love is the transparency piece where there's a commitment to notice certain meetings. There's a mechanism in there to provide technical documents to people who request them in a reasonable amount of time. It sets our policy that the haul roads would be used as a last result, and we would consider other options first. There's some really good stuff in here, and I'm sorry to say, but if there's anybody up here that can't see any good in it, I think you have some homework to do.
All right, I think we have a call for the vote before we go any farther. Let's, so we have a call for the vote. Could commissioners please vote? Okay. The motion is to note and place on file communication, or resolution, sorry. I gotta look back at what do we got here. Resolution number 2023-60. Could commissioners please vote? I think once a vote was called, I don't know if you can, on the call from the vote, you can't. Commissioner Fisher, County Attorney Joyce, once there's a call for the vote, can there be a substitute motion?
Mr. Chief Executive, no.
Okay.
You had to.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Commissioner Fisher, I think we're waiting on your vote. And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
6 yea, 4 nay.
6 yea, 4 nay, motion passes. So with that, we're moving on. Moving on, please note the calendar and other meetings and events that are on the calendar. Next, I will move to any public comment on any item that is not on the agenda tonight. Please come forward, state your name and what you're speaking to us about tonight. Yep.
Thank you. I'm Caitlin Bealey, and I'm not trying to trick everybody. It's just I have a strict soft pants policy after 8 p.m., and I knew this was going to be in for the long haul. This is not as long as it looks, but like I said, it's late, so big print. This is just to speak on something that actually Commissioner Shea made me aware of, and I really appreciate her social media presence because she's a wealth of information. She actually really seems to care what Buttians think and want, and even those who aren't in her district. In fact, it was because of Commissioner Shea's social media posts about the grant that BSB received for the air purifiers for the fire season. It was almost August, the end of August when I found out, but I still wanted to participate in the program since it ran through November 3rd. When I called the health department and set up an appointment with the gentleman there, set everything up to pick it up, and when I went into the reception area, the admin assistant kind of acted strange, and when I said I was there to pick up the air filter, and she said, "How did you know about that?" I didn't know if I was supposed to learn a secret handshake before I went in or something. It just kind of struck me as odd. So we went back through the labyrinth of the health department and chatted, and he set up everything for me. He was a super friendly guy, and the subject of the health and well-being of everyone in Butte came up, and I seriously felt like I was going to be tarred and feathered for having a dissenting opinion. It's apparently not popular to point out bad science or conflicts of interest here, and just for the record, science isn't a matter of opinion or like what people take away from it. That's the nice thing about STEM is it's always the same. Everybody gets the same answer because there's scientific proof and hypotheses that need to be proven and parameters that make something a good study. So did not feel very popular walking out of there. This was not exactly the debut I was hoping to make in Butte. I'm a fifth-generation Montanan, and I care about Montana, and I care about Butte. This is where I'm choosing to build a house, and I just want to have a nice community to live in like the rest of you. It's really feeling like a very unfriendly place in some circles, though, and I kind of have a feeling now what Stacey Berry, Peterson, Dave Hutchins, and Jim Ford have experienced, because it is not very fun. I did consider taking the low road for a brief moment and thought maybe I won't return this HEPA air filter thing until I get my request that dates back to September 3rd on the allocation agreement, which still has not been fielded. I've not seen anything, but I signed an agreement, so I do plan to keep my word. So I will see the health department by November 3rd, even though research shows that chimney smoke impacts respiratory health more negatively than wildfires, but I digress. And I just have a couple more notes that I thought of while I was listening to our spirited community debate. I'm really sorry again that I was born in 1988. I just haven't had the opportunity to be alive to speak on these issues, and boy, is it complex. It has taken me so long to catch up. I've been watching council meetings from like 2019 trying to wrap my brain around this. It's a lot. And like I said, 2 brain surgeries, so it's very taxing. I also would like to point out that I was a public relations major in senior college, and ARCO, British Petroleum, is in the index 3 times because they have the shadiest practices.
Miss Bailey, thank you.
I just like to finish my sentence.
I know, but we give everybody 3 minutes and we respect it.
Toxic sludge is good for you. It's a
Thank you very much.
Piece.
Thank you for your.
Thank you.
Is there any other public comment for tonight? Seeing none, I will take a motion to adjourn. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, signal by aye. Aye. And opposed? We are adjourned.